Ladies and gentlemen,
What the hell is going on?
things keep changing by the hour with this election, it seems. So we decided to start about 5 or 6 minutes early. So hopefully everyone's okay with that. Tanya is a little bit under the weather, as we mentioned in chat. So she is still going to be moderating in chat, and the rules have already been posted. And aggravate partially sick, partially grumpy Tanya at your peril. Anyway, I don't need to worry about that with NP Nation. So it will be just me, myself, and I, as well as Jack is going to be moderating as well. We may have William join at some point. Barnaby is dealing with his real life issues, as the rest of us have, and he won't be joining us, unfortunately, but he'll be joining us in spirit, I'm sure. I don't know whether Jester is going to hit us up on tonight's stream or not. If he is, I'm sure we will see him at some point. So hit that like. Let's get this stream out there, and let's represent NP Nation really, really well. I hope everybody had the chance to see our crazy interview with Sergeant Merrifield and Detective McNamara that we dropped earlier today. That was definitely one for the books, and it certainly didn't feel like it went an hour and 13 minutes or whatever the final runtime was, but there we have it. So a couple of very, very impressive individuals, and I think we all tip our hat to them for what they're trying to do. Anyhow, make sure you like this stream. We are competing against many other streams tonight, including mainstream media. So let's show them how it's done on Northern Perspective and what NP Nation is all about. All I keep hearing from people who go to rallies across the country is all I see is Northern Perspective gear, and that's what we want to see, is NP Nation represent. So thank you, everybody who's doing that. We're about 600 likes behind. Let's keep that going and get that up. So the actual coverage from CPAC is going to be starting in roughly 18 minutes or so. And we're expecting to have the English feed. If not, this is going to be a very interesting stream. But should be the English feed, and we will get the translation as the candidates are actually speaking. Now, since this is going to be a debate, and we're all really interested to hear what they say and not what I say, I'm going to be doing my best to keep my mouth quiet as the debates are going on, unless something crazy happens and I'll just react to it. But there should be a few breaks as we go through it, and that is when I'm going to be saving my commentary for all of you. And most likely super chats and any member donations, I will get to those as I always do, but I will most likely get to them when the debate is over, because I don't want to interrupt proceedings. But that doesn't stop me from getting to the ones that have actually been put through now. So I'm just going to see about getting started with that. Let's go. Okay. So we are starting right there. Okay. So we have Jod, Donna Swick, Dan Lizotte, some random Albertan, which is great, Clayton Cameron, Larry Hayes, and Snackpack 100, Casey, and BJ Magrog joining as NP supporter. Thank you very, very much for that. And we have Gokodani with a $5 super chat. Debate drinking game. Rule number 1, take a drink every time Carney ahs, etc. Rule number 2, keep poison control and speed dial. Yeah, we're going to need that. We are definitely going to need that. And another super chat from JP Power, essentially saying in French that be listening on Radio Canada, and hope everybody has a wonderful night. Vive la Quebec. There you go. And next we have David Dorward for $14. Thank you very, very much for that. Gokodani dropping 10 memberships. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And Kevin McKenna for member for 5 months. Woohoo! Happy anniversary. The only channel on YouTube that deserves my money. And thank you, Ryan and Tanya, for preserving your morals and ethics. Well, thank you very much. Sorry for that little disturbance there. I just had the CPAC coverage start, which started a little bit earlier than I thought it would. Anyway, let's continue. We have Mustang Drummer, member for 7 months. Can't wait till Friday to cast my vote. Blue Wave begins now. Hopefully the questions show the true intentions of each candidate. Yes, it's going to be very, very interesting. Quentin Begamery for $28. Thank you very much. I really hope Carney shows his arrogance and answer in English. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you just can't get through the French answer and switches to English? Wouldn't really go too well. Amanda Royal for $28. Thank you very much. You guys are 100% the only reason that I pay attention to politics. Thank you so much for that, Amanda. It means a lot to both Tanya and I. Thank you for being voices and advocates for truth and knowledge. And that's what we try to do. It doesn't matter if there's a story going around that makes Carney and the Liberals look bad, if it's not true, or if the opinion or the story isn't quite right, we will give our take to ensure that, at least from our perspective, it's accurate. And that's what Canadians deserve. You don't deserve gaslighting. You don't deserve any of this sensationalism that's going on. Although our interview was pretty sensational, it was not sensationalist in my humble opinion. Now let's move on to Stephen C. member for 13 months. Who's excited to see Pierre rip Carney a few new ones? I'm excited to see Pierre and Yves-Francois Blanchet both rip him a few new ones, because he has gone back and forth on many things, and I think both of them have a few things to say to him. Steve with 2000 something, I can't tell from here. What a treat getting to watch the debate with my morning coffee. Thanks, MP. Awesome. Thank you very much. Mary Lou Cleveland for $14. Thank you. Kat Ann, member for 4 months. Thanks for this, Ryan. Thank you. And Kevin Taylor for $5. Can't wait to vote for PPC. Pierre officially lost my vote when he banned MCGA gear from his rallies. Max had our backs during the coof. Come at me, bro. And we have Philin Piquel for $5. Just got back from early voting a few minutes ago. Pierre for PM. Let's bring it home. And I think we're up to date. Thank goodness. Let's see how long it takes YouTube to actually crash my stream tonight. Knock on wood, it won't be too long, but we'll see how it goes. And got a couple of ones here. We have Marcio Duras for $20. I really want to vote for Pierre. I don't like my MP candidate as she doesn't share who she is, not even on her website. I don't know her ideas, thoughts for her riding. Maybe I don't understand the election system well. It depends on when she was appointed. If she was appointed very, very late, then there's not going to be a lot of media out there at all. The one suggestion I have is, if you know where her campaign office is, just go and drop by and have a conversation with either her or one of her staffers that's there, and then you'll get a bit better sense for that. Rick Newton for $2.79. Let's take our country back, Canadian proud. Awesome. And let's see. Desuit. D's Outside Life, maybe that's what it is, with a $2.79 super chat. Thank you very much. And Matawa Miss for $10. Thank you. How many milligrams of Zoloft do you think Carney staff is going to slip him before the debate? I don't know. Lazarus for $5. How often do you think Carney will fearmonger with Trump? Oh, every chance he gets. Every chance he gets, he will do that. PPC is a throwaway vote. Reacts Riot, member for 1 month. Did you see they just removed immigration as a topic for the English debate tomorrow night? Yes. And from what I've heard from some of the staffers out there, they have replaced it with crisis leadership. crisis leadership. They removed the one topic that 99% of the problems in Canada have been actually caused by over the last 10 years, which is a disastrous immigration problem. And they've replaced it with crisis leadership, something that's only arguably happened within the last few months, and some would even say this isn't really a crisis. Mark Carney, we heard an ad actually as we were driving today. We heard an ad that Mark Carney is trying to say that this is the, what did he say? It was something like it's the greatest crisis of our lives or something like that. But he was trying to refer to Trump. But I think the rest of Canadians would agree it would be the greatest crisis of our lives if the Liberals won another mandate. And we have Rick Liard, member for 9 months. I would watch it here, and I might later, but I prefer to watch in French. I did hit the like, and everyone else should. Thanks for all you do, and can't blame you, Rick. If you understand it and you prefer to just watch it in French, by all means, we will not be offended. And Rick Varro for $10. Thank you very much. Hi, Ryan and MP Nation. This should be a fun night. Yes, it should be. Yes, it should be. And we're still around 1,300 likes behind, folks. Don't forget to ring that doorbell on your way in. Take your shoes off, put your feet up, grab your beverage of choice and your snack. Many are using popcorn tonight, I know. And Doodlebog for $5. Thank you very much. I know a CPC majority is not possible at this point. You never know. Don't look at the polls. But do you think there is a chance of a minority at least? I am very afraid of a Liberal government. I think all of us are afraid of a Liberal government, so I can definitely empathize with you there. But we just have to keep putting in all the work that we can until the last day. Keep having conversations. Keep doing what we can to ensure that the Liberals do not get in. And whatever the result happens, we will move forward. Dawn will come. Katie Cat, member for 17 months. Hello, NP team. Thanks for all your coverage. I voted today. Awesome. Go Pierre. And we also have Tail in the Dark for $10. Thank you very much. Do you think Pierre will mention 9 traitors from the RCMP report while the media not covering it? Probably not. Because they weren't, the way they were positioned in that letter, remember, they weren't positioned as traitors. It's separate from this NSICOP 11, and this is one of the reasons why we made sure we fact checked what was being said about this and what the actual facts were about this. There's no debate whatsoever that these ministers were terrible at the jobs, and even if they did things on purpose, it doesn't mean they're collaborating with foreign states, right? So there's two different things, and we just want to make sure we're accurate there. But I'm sure he's going to mention a lot. I'm sure security clearance is going to come up, and if Pierre is on his game, he's going to mention, well, I wouldn't have been able to talk about Paul Chang at all, if I had actually taken that NSICOP report or NSICOP briefing. So there you go. And we have, let me just get this all set up so we're ready to go, folks. We have Rick Newton for $2.79 to make pipelines again great again. Yeah, because Carney's now, changing his mind about it. Daniel T, member for 10 months. As I'm trying to get through here, because YouTube's great, everybody. Thank you for what you do, helping my EDA and local conservative candidate. Excellent. Let's all show up and vote. Sean Lefty Legend for $7. Let the public laughter begin when Pierre starts to talk. That it'll be like watching a little league batter step in against Nolan Ryan, right? Big whiff. And then we have a lot gaming. Almut Gaming for $2. Thank you very much. Where is Tanya? Tanya is downstairs. She is not feeling well. She hasn't been feeling well the last couple of days, but hopefully she'll be better soon, and she'll be right back next to me. And for those of you who remember, there's a special placeholder that's going to be joining us tonight. And there you go. There's that memory leak. Thank you very, very much for that. YouTube, you're just great. We have all sorts for $14. Thank you very much, Ryan and Tanya. Thanks for reporting with integrity. We try. Golka 90 for $2. Ding dong. Let the smackdown begin. Round one. Fight. And Brian Letwinack for $5. I'm so concerned that if the Libs get back in, it may be time to start look at leaving. I can't watch Canada fall the way it will under Carney. I can empathize with that. Tony and I will still be here, still doing what we do. Lazarus for $5. Thank you very much. Remember people in 1984, Canadian federal election, and look what happened there. Get out and vote for a change. Don't sit on your butts. Yes, do not succumb to apathy. Do not do that, no matter where you are in Canada. Jacob Park for $5. Why did they start with the French debate? Is this to allow Carney to prepare for Pierre in the English debate? It's normal. It's normal. It's kind of, my guess is it's trying to be cordial to the French Canadian population. That's my guess. Quentin Begamery for $7. Pierre, don't take the LPC bait. Keep your cool. Yes. He's going to have to be careful. Glennis Babby for $28. Thank you very much. Suna Soul Silver for $5. The fact they remove the immigration issue on the English debate is so dumb. They knew Carney can't do anything on that debate. Defund the CBC. Well, I would be very shocked if Pierre didn't try to squeak in a bunch of answers to do with immigration, especially if they talk about housing and other things. Like, because immigration has caused many of these other issues, I strongly think that Pierre is going to be bringing immigration in there because it's related to many of these things, right? So although I'm annoyed, I'm not too worried because Pierre is a phenomenal debater. Gazalarian for $5. Thank you. Even if they take immigration off the table of the debate, could an outlet like Rebel News pose immigration as a question, or is it completely off? The only questions I believe that are going to be asked are from the moderators, so I don't believe that that's going to be a possibility. But we'll see what happens. Mike Stewart for $7. For anyone confused about what CCP China is and what its influence in our country means, invest an hour or so and watch a Frank Decoder lecture. There you go. Or you can invest probably a couple of weeks and go through our China playlist, because I think there's over 100 videos in there that are all related. So yeah, have fun with that one. Crispy Bacon 1973 for $5. It has begun. Well, I guess we'll see. So all right, I'm actually going to flip over here now, make sure this is looking good. So far it seems to be looking good, and many of you will actually remember. You'll remember the placeholder for, or you'll remember Tanya's avatar. She's here in spirit, even though I could probably yell down and she could probably hear me, although I would make all of you deaf. So there you go. And we have Bonnie Gunn for $25. Thank you so much for that. Thank you both for your dedication and hard work. You've opened a lot of eyes to the truth, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you. David Clark for $7. Hey there, big hugs from Lorna, handshakes from Dave. Thank you, Lorna and Dave. You guys are amazing. And Megan Zero for $2. I wish PPC was there. Well, unfortunately, they didn't hit the milestones that were required. Chris Van Baum for $5. If Carney wins, that will be two countries I'm a citizen of that he's damaged the economy, and that's sad, right? And I want to make sure I get the name right here. Yep, Woody Doppelganger for $10. Thank you very much. Will break my heart if 1984 doesn't happen. As Alberta will put forward a referendum if Danielle's demands are not met. I'm excited to go and make my voice heard, though, at the advanced polls. I could unpack that a lot. The thing is they can hold a referendum. That doesn't mean that they can leave. There's a lot of other processes that have to happen in order for that to become a possibility. Curdy for $10. Bless you both for your service of information. Thank you. Chris Van Baum for $2. Also voted yesterday in Rockton for Dan Muse. Excellent. There you go. We will be voting in a couple of days, and for those that may not know, or maybe you haven't looked into it yet, Get Out the Vote is this weekend, and what that means is you can volunteer with your EDA to help get people out to vote. that may not otherwise be available. People that need rides, people that need assistance, seniors at retirement homes, that sort of thing. So I will be doing my part on I believe it's Friday, and driving around for about 6 to 8 hours to make sure that we get as many people out to the polls as possible. So if you are interested in doing that, please contact your EDA. They will take any and all help that they can get. Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. We have Ian Blackburn, member for 3 months, with a comment. You guys rock. Keep it going. Bring it home, Pierre. And Adventure Outdoors for $10. Let's bring it home. Thanks, Northern Perspective. Well, thank you, everybody. You have been phenomenal over the over this last couple of years since we started in January 2023. It's been something else, I can tell you that. Jennifer Peterson for $7. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Jennifer. And Robert Hurst for $50. Thank you so much for that, Robert. Question about municipal politics in Vancouver. We had Sean Orr, a proud communist, who called for revolutionary violence with focus provincial and federal rather than municipal politics. Activists can overwhelm low voter turnouts. Love the show. Well, and it's actually interesting because you're not allowed to do that. This is the pre-show, no doubt.
Hello, welcome, and here is Catherine. Here I am, Catherine Lafrance. I'm so glad to see you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this
we're on the right channel, right?
Show for the French leaders' language debate, which will start in 15 minutes. This is the kind of exercise that the leaders always submit themselves to. It's an important aspect of every campaign, and Radio Canada CBC was chosen to produce both of the debates live, of course, from their studios. We can see the leaders who arrived a little earlier today in Montreal for the debate. It will be live. It will last 2 hours up until 8 o'clock tonight without any interruptions. And there will be 5 main themes: energy and climate, the cost of life, trade wars, identity, sovereignty, immigration, and foreign affairs. So 2 last-minute decisions have come up in this debate just before, it was a couple of hours before, as you know, it was announced yesterday. The debate was supposed to start at 8 o'clock, but there happens to be a hockey game with the Habs tonight in Montreal. And so also the Green Party was not included in the debate, and Jonathan Pedneau has reacted to this news. Well, we're not there because there was an arbitrary political decision that was made, and it deprives Canadians of an important voice. We looked at the possibility of trying to...
Okay, so this is very interesting. It's very interesting that before today, the Green Party was just happy not to have the PPC participate in the debate, and they didn't say anything about these rules then. Now that they actually dropped so far in the polls, and they didn't hit the 90% representation in ridings across Canada, now they have a problem with it because they've gotten kicked out. So I think that's very interesting.
What do you think about the fact that the Green Party was set aside? And unless we understand, it was the Bloc who asked for this as well as the Conservative Party? Yes, it is rather odd, isn't it? And rather worrisome, really, because I think we have rules, and the rules were not respected. You can set aside a party halfway through, but especially after having heard everybody say no, our interpretation, nobody said that. So we feel that the Commission seems to be at the mercy of parties.
I'm just going to mute this for the time being. Someone asked, why is Blanchette there? Well, the rule is you had to hit 2 of the 3 criteria. So you had to have, party members with seat in Parliament. You had to have above a 4% national polling average, which the Bloc does. I think they're either at 6 or 8%. So that's the 2. That's the two. So the third one, they don't meet, obviously, which, the bloc does not run candidates in 90% of the ridings, but they don't have to. They only have to meet 2 of those 3 criteria, and that's why he's allowed to be there.
By surprised, and so he said, yes, I want to contest. Well, what are the rules for contesting? And it would seem that we'd have to go in front of the courts. So there are things that are not very clear in the way that the commission acts. And since this commission was created, many people say that the format that is used prevents smaller parties from participating. For instance, Maxime Bernier's party, for the People's Party of Canada, who has complained about this on many occasions, and now we see the Green Party being shunted aside. So the big parties, the well-established parties, are allowed. Do you think that was it the pressure? Perhaps. Éric Grenier, what do you think? Do you think this is going to change the tenure of the debate because there's one party less in studio? Well, yes, and he was actually one of the 2 francophones. But yes, the Green Party followed all of the rules set out by the Commission, but at the same time there was a criteria that you needed to have candidates in 90% of the ridings, but there are only 232 candidates, so that's not quite enough. So they're not really a truly national party. And I think that this is going to give the other 4 leaders more time to talk. Do you think that this is a good news for democracy? This is the question we might be asking ourselves. Well, I think that if the Green Party was saying that they had 90%, they had candidates in 90% of the ridings, 2/3 with Green parties, I think that the spirit then would be broken. So we'll have some images very soon, and so they're all doing a little photo op right now. And now we're going to take a good look at what the studio looks like. I'd like us to talk about another surprising bit of news yesterday. Just the fact that we changed the debate schedule, and we rescheduled to 6 o'clock. What did you think about that? Look, I'm not a really huge hockey fan, but
I got to get to this the super chat for Megan Zero for $5. No, Ryan, that's not true. Blanchette is there to wreck Carney. That's the real reason. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Love it. Love it. So I apologize. I apologize that I missed that. Let me get to some of these other ones. Okay, I got Jennifer and I got Robert Hurst. Damien McNeil gifting 10 memberships. Thank you very much for that. Daniel Pickle. Hello, Ryan and Tanya. I just want to thank you for your content. My wife and I have been following you for over a year and have learned so much. I turned 35 on the 27th, voting here in Nova Scotia. That's excellent. Excellent to hear, and thank you so much for your support in viewing. Jeff asked for $5. Isn't the LPC the foreign interference? No, that's domestic interference. Foreign Canada, foreign company, ties with China, and now foreign tactics. You would think. Stephanie Girton for $3 with a $3 super sticker. Thank you very, very much for that. And Cherubala for $7. Thank you, NP Nation, watching the stream on your channel. Excellent, which we'd love to hear. Woody Doppelganger for $5. I know this is the French debate, yet for us Anglophones, do they have translation during the debate? Yes, you will hear the translation. Yes, that's why we're on this channel. CPAC actually has 2 different channels that they're streaming live right now. One is completely in French, and one is with the English translation, which is what we have here. And we have Fred Stonehouse for $50. Thank you so much for that, Fred. Thank you so much for keeping us abreast of things that is going on. It is really our pleasure. And Stephanie Girton for $10. Thanks for all you do, Northern Perspective. Thank you for watching and supporting. And Almec Gaming for $2. Should they some restrictions? I'm not clear on exactly what you meant by that. My apologies for that. and but we're gonna be getting going in 7 minutes. So I'm wondering if they're going to be actually having the scheduled breaks in between it. It's funny how much they are just trying to clock this in right before the hockey game. But it all depends, because if the Philadelphia Flyers beat the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight, then this game is meaningless. If they do not, then Montreal must win in order to secure a playoff spot. That's why this is all getting crazy for those that are not following hockey. And Dirt Dog Skip Tuckley, love it, with a $20 super sticker. Thank you very much, saying you are amazing, with a dancing pair. Randy Albert for $5. Hello, Ryan. Block for Pierre. Yes. Yes. He will have some blockers for him. That's for sure. In the name of Yves Francois Blanchette, 100%. And just a mini announcement, actually. We are thrilled to report, Tanya and I, that Vincent Visits Parliament, our children's book, is actually already a #1 bestseller on Amazon. So thank you, everybody who has started purchasing that, who pre-ordered. We were over, I think, 430 pre-orders for the book. Thank you so much for supporting our effort to educate Canadian youth in a non-partisan way. Thank you very much, everybody. And we are waiting for our initial shipment of books so that we can start offering the signed copies for people. And those who have pre-ordered, you should be receiving your books very shortly, if not already. So thank you. Crispy Bacon 1973 for $5. Did Pierre actually pay for Carney to be on? So that was the TVA debate. This is the official leadership debate. That's different. So the TVA debate is a French only debate that has happened every election since 2015, and Carney just refused to go on, which it was very telling, very, very telling. But Carney's been hiding for the last 5 days because of how he is in front of a microphone. So it's going to be very interesting for now the Canadian public all across Canada to see how he performs in an actual debate. Mixed excuses, Mark, for 12 months. I don't like people can vote before seeing an actual political debate, uninformed voters. Yeah, it's interesting, eh? But I think it's to maximize accessibility. That's what I'm guessing. So we have about 3 or 4 minutes left until this kicks off. So we're getting close, folks. We're getting close. This has been something that we've been waiting for, ironically, waiting for Pierre and Justin Trudeau to go at for a long time. But we will take what we can get. And Woody Doppelganger for $5. Can't wait to watch Pierre destroy Carney. Yeah.
You will be destroyed!
All right, let's get to this.
Exchanges. I hope that Canadians will be well served, and I hope that they'll be able to understand the platforms of each and every one of the leaders. I'm not entirely convinced here because there's so much to lose, more than there is to win. And there will be losers and there will be one winner at the end of this process in a couple of weeks. So there's a lot of stake tonight, a lot of pressure. And Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney have never participated in leaders' debate. But at the same time, Mr. Singh, he's done several debates, as well as Mr. Blanchette. Yes, sorry to interrupt you here, but you say that Mr. Blanchette and Mr. Singh have nothing to lose. Well, yes, it can't be worse for them than it is right now. But at the same time, they still have to perform well.
So I'm just putting the volume down so I can kind of hear what's happening. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Because, they say that Pierre Poilievre hasn't participated in a leadership debate. Well, that's true. He has participated in debate for the last 20 years in the House of Commons. He is very, very strong at debating. Whereas Carney has never participated in a political debate. Even during the Liberal leadership debate, he did not participate in an actual political debate because that was anything but a debate. When everyone around you is kind of helping you get through, that was the impression that he left. So there you have it. Now we have make sure I keep my my screen going. Mike Stewart for $7. I'm old. I've been hearing that mainstream media is dead for a while now. After discovering your channel, I understand. They need to get rid of the bias, or at least be honest about their bias. Like, we are not without bias in our perspective, but we tell everybody what our bias is. But that doesn't stop us from giving you the straight facts unfiltered, and then providing your opinion, and then providing you exactly where we get the information whenever possible. And that allows you to take a look at what we're looking at and make your own decision. So,
we'll also watch the tone of the debate, because that's
Gibb Salisbury for $2.79. Carney is hiding because of his 9 corrupt MPs. Incompetent MPs is what I would say. But he's hiding because he cannot handle the pressure of being in front of a camera and saying proper things. Jack. No, this isn't Jack. This is Watch Your Eyes 2. Member for 1 month. Did you hear what Tucker Carlson said about Polyev? No, I did not. Waifu for Life for $2. Can we get a cat cam instead of the 3D puppet? You can get a cat cam. It would still be empty because the cats are downstairs with Tanya. And Matt Gabriel for $20. Keep up the great work. Thank you very, very much for that. And we have Tony Gerasi for $7. Liberal logic. I hate Trump because he's greedy and doesn't pay taxes. I love Carney because he's greedy and doesn't pay taxes, right? When it's Trump doing it, he's corrupt. When it's Carney, he's smart. Oh, yay. Carney arrives.
Tonight, who will score points? Who will convince you? Who will reassure you? Who will inspire you? Welcome to the Federal Leaders Debate 2025.
The word tariff is one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary.
This election is the most important of our lives. We will never be an American state, ever. The U.S. threat is huge, but there are other issues at stake. We choose Quebec. Donald Trump has attacked our country. We have to defend our workers. Live from Maison Radio-Canada in Montreal, this is the Leaders Debate 2025 with Patrice Roy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the French Leaders Debate. We are joined by Mark Carney, leader of the Liberal Party, Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, Yves-François Blanchet, leader of the Bloc Québécois, and Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party. Good evening to all 4 of you.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 p.m. in a few seconds. This important event has been moved forward to give as many people as possible the opportunity to tune in without missing a decisive moment for another one of our passions, hockey. And by the way, I'll go off script here for a few seconds and say that the Montreal Canadiens, you'd better win. I also would like to say that the leaders' invitations were managed by the Leaders' Debates Commission, and the podium places on the set were designated at random. But the questions, subjects, and editorial choices are ours. I'll be managing speaking time fairly, within a fair limit. There are 5 themes tonight. Obviously, the trade war with the United States, the cost of living, energy and climate, immigration and foreign affairs, and finally, identity and sovereignty. And I'll also have a few rapid-fire questions at the end of the debate. This debate is your debate this evening. You will be free to speak as much as possible. The only rule that I ask of you is not to speak at the same time. If you start talking over one another, I'll ask Pascal, our sound engineer, to turn off your mics. So let the debate begin, or I was going to say good game. So we'll move on to our first opening question. You'll have 45 seconds each to answer. This election, according to many, has been hijacked by Trump. So to assert our sovereignty early in this debate, I'll ask you to name 2 things you'd put forward, concrete things that will change the lives of Canadians, but that have nothing to do with the United States. 45 seconds. Mr. Carney, you're first.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Leroy. And I'd like to thank everyone watching at home for joining us tonight. And I'd like to thank the other leaders for your service to Canada. 2 things that don't include Mr. Trump. First of all, we need to double the rhythm of construction of new homes here in Canada. That's absolutely fundamental. And the second thing, we need to promote and strengthen our cultural institutions in Canada.
45 seconds, Mr. Poilievre. 2 things that you would promise Canadians to change their lives that have nothing to do with the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Roy, and thanks to my colleagues for being here today. Clearly, life is no longer affordable. The promise of an affordable life is broken. I have a plan to make life more affordable by cutting taxes by 15%. That's one thing that will reward work for the middle class and for seniors who've already worked. Second thing, we're going to scrap the GST on new houses, and we're going to incentivize cities to reduce their taxes too, so that our young people can save up to $100,000 on a new home and restore the promise of Canada.
Mr. Blanchet.
He was like right on time.
I would like to come back to something that I do all year long. First of all, thank you for having welcomed us. I have been waiting for this moment for a long time. I would like to insist on 2 things for Quebec that I was talking about before the Trump crisis is Quebec's right to have a different and open economy, open to the world, based on its own natural resources, on its own attachment to a green economy, but also Quebec's right to be different, to have a different language, to have a different culture, to have different values, to have different immigration models that need to succeed. These are elements that should always have been mentioned, but that have a particularly new sense with this new crisis.
Great. Mr. Singh, 45 seconds. 2 things that have nothing to do with the American.
Thank you for the question. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about values. What are the values that underpin the answer to this question? Canadians and Quebecers like taking care of one another. We come together. That is what we believe in. That is a basic value for us. And this value is embodied in our public health care system, which has nothing to do with the U.S. And we want our healthcare system to be nothing like the American one. We will expand pharmacare so that everyone can access the medications they need. And I also want to talk about dental care. I also want to expand that program, which owes itself to us.
Thank you. I'd like to reassure you, Mr. Singh. I think you were disappointed. We are going to talk about health as well, and I'll ask questions about that later.
He went over time.
First theme,
That's why
therefore,
you interrupted.
obviously, the trade war. Trump is going to be tough. We don't know what's in store with him. I don't think any solution is going to be possible. We always thought they were our ally. It doesn't make sense. You can't reason with him. The government will have to stand firm, stay firm. We have to put him in his place. Otherwise, he'll destroy us totally. The answer should be pragmatic. It would be good to pause some of our services to the U.S. They need us. An eye for an eye. No messing around. Get us out of this mess. We need a leader who can make decisions to destabilize Trump and make him respect Canada. What does he plan to do with the new president of the United States? What do you plan to do with this president? That is the elephant in the room. So for your information, there are 1,073 days left in Donald Trump's term. Why do you think that you are the best person here tonight to negotiate with Mr. Trump? Mr. Poilievre, 35 seconds.
First of all, We will never be an American state. We will remain sovereign. On my first day as Prime Minister, I will restart negotiations to accelerate a deal that will put an end to the tariffs and protect our sovereignty. We can't control Trump, but at the same time, we have to control what we can control. We need to reverse liberal economic policies that have weakened our country. We need to unleash our resources, cut taxes, and bring jobs back home so that we can face Trump from a position of strength.
Good answer.
All right, well, first of all, in a crisis, you have to plan for the worst possible situation, and you have to have a plan to build a strong economy here in Canada. And we need to react with strength, and those are the elements that will allow us to succeed with Mr. Trump. He respects strength. He respects people who understand how the world works and who understand how the private sector works. And Canada needs to create other options, new, reliable partnerships around the world, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Blanchet.
Mr. Trump will hang from his own noose because their economy is dependent on ours. But there will be a lot of harm done to Canada, to Europe, to Mexico before then. We have to realize that our joint GDP is bigger than the States. Our population is bigger than the States, and so retaliation is going to hurt the States, but we have to negotiate in a rational way, and we shouldn't fall to fear, and we shouldn't spin fear for political reasons.
Conclusions?
It's all about priorities. For me, now is the time to invest, not cut. It is the time to protect what we hold dear, our farmers, our culture, the French language. These things should not be sacrificed. It is time to defend who we are, what our values are. And we believe in helping one another. That's what we will do. How? We will strengthen our healthcare system. We will not let it be Americanized. That is crucial. We must defend who we are.
So, open debate to begin now for about 15 minutes. Mr. Poilievre, you have called Carney a political grifter, a globalist banker who's disconnected from reality. And Mr. Carney, you've said Pierre Poilievre is a career politician who knows nothing about how the real world works. So I ask you the question, which of you first is capable of standing up to Donald Trump? Mr. Poilievre.
I am, because I'm going to put Canada first. I will never compromise Canada's interests. And I will control what we can control here. Obviously, no one will be able to control the decisions of Donald Trump, but we can control our economy, our domestic economy, by overturning liberal economic policies that have weakened our country and made us more dependent on the Americans.
The issue is, Mr. Poilievre,
Well,
you would make Canada more like the United States. You would Americanize our healthcare system, privatize it. Everyone knows that's what conservatives do.
That's not true.
Mr. Carney, you said that you're better?
all right. First of all, I know how to negotiate, and I agree with Mr. Singh. We need to start by saying what's never going to be on the table. The French language, Quebec's culture, and supply management will never be on the table. Our resources, that's the first thing. Second, in terms of Mr. Blanchet's point, the opportunities that we have with the European Union are there, and I've already started building new relationships with the European Union. As Prime Minister, I met with the President of France and with the President of the European Commission.
There's a lot to unpack in there, let's be honest. And perhaps it's right. You say that you're an expert in managing a crisis, but you say you're a negotiator, but, well, perhaps negotiating with tax havens. But when it comes to trade agreements, I haven't seen the proof. We apparently have to believe you with no political experience. And so I find it's kind of funny because people say we have to unite and work together. On the one hand, you have never spoken to me before this this evening? You're not trying to figure out how to collaborate between equals, Quebec, Canada, Mexico, European partners. You're trying to score divisive points that only serves the United States of America.
Said.
All right. I've just started as Prime Minister. I've been Prime Minister for a month. In the first week, I signed an agreement with the premiers of all the provinces, the Premier of Quebec and the premiers of all the provinces and territories concerning free trade within Canada. It's also an agreement that deals with trade corridors. That's an example. That's an example.
You haven't sat with any premiers. You've sat with MPs that will be elected at the same level as you if you're elected.
The problem, Mr. Carney, is that your party has been in power for 10 years. And in that time, it's not meetings that are going to change things. It's your policies that have blocked resources. C-69, which blocks not just pipelines, but also dams, mines, and liquid natural gas exploration. We have a deal with Europe, a trade deal. The Conservatives negotiated it, but Liberal legislation has prevented development, and you continue to support those laws. Those laws need to be repealed and replaced with laws that will unleash our resources and allow us to export abroad and allow us to become truly economically and
talk about that later.
Sovereign and have energy sovereignty as well.
Priorities. Mr. Carney, unfortunately, your priority is, well, you had time to meet with the king, but you did not increase the amount of money people receive when they lose their jobs due to the trade war. These days, people receiving EI get maybe half of their salary. For people who have already lost their jobs, that is not enough. It won't cover the bills. It won't cover their rent costs. That shows your priorities. For me, workers are number one. We need a system to support our workers.
We'll hear some in a few seconds, but Mr. Carney, response, and then I have another question for Blanchet.
Well, first of all, we need to fight in a trade war. We need to fight with counter tariffs. And all the money collected from our counter tariffs will go directly to workers and the businesses that are the most affected by this trade war. They won't be used for tax cuts the way that Mr. Poilievre is going to do.
You always want to increase them. You're a liberal. We want to cut taxes.
Started as Prime Minister
for a fourth liberal term.
I've just started.
You were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Have you forgotten that?
Honestly, let me cut in here. Both of them would cut taxes for billionaires and millionaires. They have already done it in the past. Your first step was to reduce taxes for the millionaires. Pierre Poilievre would do the same thing.
That's not true.
You're not thinking of regular people.
We've cut the consumer carbon tax. That's what we did.
Mr. Blanchet, we've been telling Canadians for several days that it would be better to have a minority government. You said it clearly. With Trump, can Canadians not want a majority government that's stronger?
I don't know where that reasoning comes. The minority government would be weaker than a majority government. Go tell that to the Germans, who have only governed through coalitions recently. Many countries have coalitions, and if that is the population of the people, then great. At this point, it's possible that Canadians and Quebecers, perhaps, choose to trust in someone who has the least experience in politics. Quebec has a different economy, different interests, different everything. We want a parliament where our economic difference is taken into account.
Let's talk a little bit about minority
in terms of the minority government.
The whole point of a minority government is to help people, to make a difference in people's lives. But honestly, Mr. Blanchet, unfortunately, in the last minority government, you showed that you were as useless as the monarchy is. You did nothing for people. What is worse, you voted against measures that would help Quebecers. Dental care, pharmacare. These are measures that have helped hundreds of thousands of Quebecers.
Quebec jurisdiction, dental care, health care,
people in Quebec,
pharmacare,
people
money
in
that we
Quebec
send to Ottawa. Ottawa does not have the expertise or the jurisdiction.
We are
Quebec
paying
does.
the bills.
Mr. Roy,
Please let me finish one sentence.
Please wrap it up.
When we want to be effective, we give the money to the experts, those who have the legal jurisdiction to spend the money, and that is Quebec in this case. The NDP gave $2 billion to an insurance company.
Giving
Everything was
money to our
going
Quebec seniors.
fine until now, but Mr. Carney, in terms of the minority government,
Mr. Roy, we are in a crisis, the most serious crisis of our lives. We need to react with resounding, overwhelming strength. Yes, we need to cut a few taxes. Yes, we need to cut bureaucracy. But the government needs to act in a time of crisis. So we need to have a government ready to act.
But when you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, you weakened our economy. We need economic sovereignty, and that means bringing back production to Canada. And I would reverse Liberal policies around development. I would expedite construction permits. We would have pre-approved permits. And that would, and I would also make sure that we could send our energy to Europe to break Europeans' dependence on Putin, and to break our dependence on the U.S.
The Conservatives and the Liberals both prioritize the ultra-rich, not you, not regular
Canadians.
Canadians.
We do have a segment on that.
That's the difference.
We have a segment on energy and pipelines, so we'll come back to that later. There are people who are watching us who are concerned. There will be negotiations with the Americans, obviously. What? Well, you'll all say supply management here, but I'd like to say that Canada gave up market shares during the last 3 trade deal negotiations. We're talking about more than $450 million a year in losses for Canadian farmers. So what is something you wouldn't concede in a negotiation?
I will defend supply management. I will defend the French language. I will defend our healthcare system. I will defend our decisions and our laws. We will always be sovereign. And the way we're going to restore that sovereignty, Canadian sovereignty, is by making our economy stronger. We need to cut red tape by 25% for businesses. We need to reduce development charges, taxes on housing. We need to support labor and energy and domestic production. That's how we can be more sovereign.
Supply management. Well, go around the table, Mr. Carney.
In the face of the U.S.
It's nice to say supply management, but we've said it 3 times and it hasn't been done. So.
Well, this is the first time that I will be at the table if I am elected as Prime Minister. I've said a number of times, and since the beginning of my campaign in Mauricie, we'll never touch supply management. We won't put Quebec culture or the French language on the table. And I think we all agree on that point. And that's important. We have to be very clear from the beginning when talking to the Americans.
One area that we don't agree on is that Pierre Poilievre would cut
our
healthcare system.
You
said it, everyone knows it. You said that you want to cut, you would cut dental care.
Not true.
Pharmacare, you called them bad ideas. And unfortunately, Mr. Carney's plan to budget the operating budget in 3 years would lead to $43 billion
we'll talk about
worth
that in
of
the
cuts.
next segment. Cost of living, we'll talk about tax cuts later and choices. And and we will underscore that none of you has tabled a costed plan. These are just promises. Mr. Blanchet on supply
We have
management.
tabled a program, first of all. Second of all, we are not the ones who decide what's on the table. If Mr. Trump says, I want to talk about this, no one will be able to stop him from at least talking about it. We've never sacrificed the principle of supply management. So it's empty words. Little bits have been sacrificed every single time at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars every single time. All Mr. Trump wants is a wave of Wisconsin milk with hormones, with no protection against antibiotics.
So what would you do concretely?
We will bring back an act that everyone approved. The Liberals before Carney approved it. Everyone had approved it, but then there were certain intrigues with unelected senators. There's a number of unelected members of Parliament that seem to be making decisions.
What would protect it better?
Well, maybe I agree with that law, but my point is that we need to invest in Canada. Our plan, which will be unveiled this weekend, will catalyze $500 billion of investment in Canada over the next 5 years. And that will be important in our negotiations with Mr. Trump.
I'd like us to listen to a worker together from Stellantis. For him, this crisis with the U.S. is very clear. He's just lost his job.
I was laid off by Stellantis because of the trade war with the U.S. How will your government stop Mr. Trump from attacking our industries one by one? And how will you protect our jobs? Concrete measures. How will you help workers? You all have different proposals. Mr. Poilievre.
First of all, I already announced a fund to help companies keep jobs, to keep workers in their jobs, because the priority of workers is to keep working. Secondly, there will be EI to protect people who have fallen on rough times. I will be there for people who've lost their jobs. At the same time, we need to stimulate investment to strengthen our economy and to encourage new companies. We need to unleash our natural resources, and we need to create more jobs in resource industries. We also want to create more jobs for tradespeople at a time when they need work to build new houses.
Let's stay on workers. Mr. Singh.
If a business wants to sell cars in Canada, they should be required to have a factory in Canada, a presence in Canada, and I would put this in a law. We are a major market. If you want to sell here, you should create jobs here. And let me add, the first thing Mr. Poilievre said in 2022 when he became Conservative leader is that he would cut EI contributions. So it is not credible that he would increase support to people when he talked about eliminating contributions.
Mr. Blanchet, for workers, you've said you want to go back to a pandemic-style wage subsidy.
The principle of that. We said that even before the campaign. To paraphrase Mr. Poilievre, EI is fairly broken. People have difficulty accessing it, and I disagree with Mr. Carney's suggestion to say that money will be invested in training. You've lost your job, but we're going to train you, and you're going to have another kick at a can at the age of 55. Not a good idea. The idea of the wage subsidy was to allow the worker to have a link to their job by giving them a subsidy so that the employer, should they want to, could rehire them someone who had the skill to do the job. So there would be a transitional period where there could be temporary job losses, like for the case we've just heard.
Well, first of all, three things. All the money from our counter tariffs will go directly to workers. Second, we have a strategic fund for manufacturing in Canada, specifically for the auto sector. And third, our counter tariff system for the automotive sector contains an incentive of $7 billion for the automakers to keep production and workers here in Canada. That's very important. But the reason that we've done all of this is so that we can have strong positions to negotiate with Trump.
Just to conclude, I think we need to encourage Canadians to buy Canadian-made cars. And that's why, as long as there are tariffs, we will scrap the GST on cars and trucks that are built here, mainly built here in Canada.
That's good, because my next...
I think the tariff is a good idea. What allows companies to buy and sell more, then yes, I do agree with that approach.
70%.
Mr. Poilievre copied our idea. We announced the GST lifting for Canadian-made cars before him.
Now, there are a lot of things that are in all of your platforms, but we'll come back to that. Now, 70% of Canadians say that they're buying fewer American products. That's a big number. You leaders, could you please name me one made-in-USA product that you no longer buy?
I buy my own strawberries.
So you don't buy strawberries?
I buy Quebec strawberries, and I do my own shopping, by the way.
So what products have you not bought, Mr. Carney?
No more wine, no more alcohol, no more American alcohol.
I do my own shopping, and I cook at home. Lots of products. Fruits, there's a lot of Canadian apples.
So you're making an effort?
Yes, I'm making an effort with apples, other fruit, strawberries.
Strawberries. Everyone is eating a lot of strawberries these days.
I bring it up because I do my own grocery shopping, which Carney does not.
This is a delicious conversation. It's beef in my case. I buy Canadian beef. It's the best beef in the world. But I never buy American strawberries either.
Organic beef from Quebec is also not bad.
Well, let's share some of that
All
someday.
right. It's very beautiful to see. Our next theme is the cost of living.
Hunter Singh buys his own bags of potatoes.
He can manage our money. Oh, we're having a hard time here. I hope they'll be able to balance the budget and maintain the same quality of services. Inflation, lower taxes. I earn a good salary, but it's hard to pay for groceries, for childcare for our kid, for everything. Education is expensive. Prices keep going up. The middle class is hurting, and for the poor, it's worse. We're retired, and we're counting every penny. We're getting poorer. I feel like no one really listens to young people on housing or the cost of living. So what does the future hold for us young people? What does the future hold for young people? I'll give you a few figures here very briefly. I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but in Montreal, housing prices have more than doubled over 10 years, from over $300,000 to $671,000. Remarkable growth in Toronto and Vancouver as well. So my question, and you'll have 35 seconds, first of all, how can we improve access to housing, for example, for this young woman that we just heard from, Mr. Blanchet?
Clearly, it's through the starting capital and another GST-based policy. There needs to be access to capital for their down payment. My children can't pay for a house. A lot of them have jobs, good jobs. It's essential that we give them a little boost. Using public money, for example, and it's not during a crisis and in cutting budgets that we will be able to do so. We need to reduce speculation on house prices. We need to invest in affordable housing, social housing, student housing to give a good price and reduce pressure.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Mr.
He says a lot without saying anything at all.
I'm with you, with all those who are having a hard time affording their groceries, or young people who can't buy a house. After a decade of liberal inflation, liberal policies have increased the cost of living the most in 40 years. I will cut your taxes for the average worker by 15%. We will scrap the GST on new homes, and we will incentivize municipalities to speed up permits and construction so that young people can once again buy a home and restore the dream of home ownership.
In order to fix this crisis in the cost of living, we need to make sure that Canadians have more money in their pockets, and they need to have more Canada in their pockets. So that means a tax cut for the middle class, and our plan is almost $800 per family, cut the GST on first homes, and increase competition. And in Canada, we have dental care, pharmacare, and daycares. We need to protect that, and we need to double new housing construction in Canada with our plan.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. When I talk to people and the cost of living comes up, there are two main topics. First, grocery costs. Second, housing costs. For groceries, major grocery giants are gouging us. We saw this with the price of bread, the price of meat. They drive prices up, and they are gouging the Canadian public. We would put price caps on essential groceries. We would also stop corporate landlords from buying up affordable housing and apartments. We are in it for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. 245,000 housing units were built in 2024. You've all promised to massively accelerate the pace of that construction. The Liberals have said 500,000, the NDP 600,000. Mr. Singh, you're going to start this part of the open debate. Does this grow on trees?
We have a clear plan for how to make this happen. First, we would not sell off our federal land. We would keep it, and we would build affordable housing on it, 100% affordable. We would train Canadian workers to build more homes. We also must keep the affordable housing that we do have, and unfortunately, the two major parties have let rich speculators buy up affordable housing. And now we have no more. That's a major issue. We need to keep our affordable housing and build more housing in general.
A couple of ideas. First of all, I would like to talk for Quebec. There are delays of hundreds of thousands of houses to be built, and we don't have the human resources to do so. But there are initiatives for small housing, for social housing, modular housing, that would allow us to build quicker with fewer resources and cheaper to accommodate as many people as possible. But I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's financial framework, because the Conservatives want to cut. They're going to have to cut spending at some point as well. The Liberals want to cut in revenue but increase expenditure. There's some financial magic that's in there somewhere. I would like to hear their financial framework or even their electoral platforms.
In a minute,
that would be
the
nice.
costed plan. But Mr. Carney, 500,000 housing units.
And we need to get started so that we can get the housing market working better with a reduction in bureaucracy at the municipal level and in fees. But we are proposing a new institution, Build Canada Homes, which is going to build affordable homes using lumber from Quebec, using lumber from British Columbia, using Canadian wood, and using new Canadian technologies. We are going to create a new industry.
It seems to me, you say 500,000 units? I mean, I could say 800,000, 400,000. Where is this coming from?
You know, if I can have 35 seconds, we need to add funding of $25 billion for the development of affordable homes and $10 billion for...
Mr. Poilievre, you haven't costed your objective.
Yes, we will, in our platform, which is going to come out in a few days. But Mr. Carney, you're repeating exactly the same promises that Justin Trudeau has been making for 10 years. During the Liberal decade, when you were the economic advisor, the cost of housing has gone up, and you inflated the cost of housing then, too. You have a terrible record in England for real estate costs there, the real estate prices. The problem is that the Liberals want to build bureaucracy. They want to balloon bureaucracy by creating new departments, new bureaucrats. We don't need more bureaucrats. We need more homes, more new doors on new homes for young families. The reason why housing has become so expensive today is because of taxes and bureaucracy. I will eliminate the GST on new homes. I will incentivize cities to free up land and accelerate permits so that we can build and build your homes.
Sing's going to try and say he lost 800,000
Let us talk records. Mr. Poilievre, you were a housing minister. How many homes did you build?
Over 200,000.
I'll tell you, 6. You built 6 homes.
200,000.
6.
200,000.
We cannot believe what
you
you're
asked
saying.
the question. Can I answer it?
We cannot believe Mr. Poilievre. He only built 6 homes.
200,000.
When he was in power.
Can I answer?
We know the answer.
Can
it's
I
6.
answer? It was 200,000 that year, and the cost of the average home was $450,000. So thanks very much for reminding everyone of my record. It was a good record.
During the 10 years the Conservatives were in power, rent doubled, housing costs doubled. And then, when the Liberals came in, they doubled again. Unfortunately, Mr. Carney benefited from the housing crisis when he was the board chair at Brookfield Investments. His company benefited from the housing crisis by buying up affordable buildings and tripling rents.
Mr. Carney.
Notice Carney doesn't know what to do in this debate.
Mr. Poilievre's approach is everyone for themselves. In the COVID crisis, he said, okay, let's cut taxes, let's cut bureaucracy. This crisis, now that we're facing the greatest crisis of our lives, he's saying, cut taxes, cut bureaucracy. In a crisis, you have to do that to a certain point, but you have to act as a government. And if I may, you need to have capital to catalyze investment. And with a small amount of catalyzing investment from the Government of Canada, we can create huge private investment and a new Canadian industry.
All right, Mr. Blanchet, then Mr. Poilievre.
Another proposal that I find interesting is to allow parents who have money in savings for their retirement to take the money temporarily to help for their kids' down payment. That's not $500 billion that will be required. These are not civil servants that will be fired. This is a logical decision made by parents like myself who want to help their kids without money from the state, with a tax measure that helps retirees who want to help their children. Would that not be more concrete than programs after programs that are just empty words and for which there's no financial framework?
Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute, but let's let Mr. Poilievre conclude because you were having a conversation with Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney, in 2020 and 2021, you said that inflation wouldn't happen and that it would have been a good thing if it did. You were quoted in the media and you even advised Justin Trudeau to print money, and that's what caused our inflationary crisis. You're just like Justin Trudeau. You have exactly the same policies, the same approach. We need change. And you, Mr. Carney, you do not embody change.
You represent the ultra-rich.
Mr. Poilievre is not Justin Trudeau. I'm not Justin Trudeau either, okay? In this election, the question is, who is going to succeed? Who is going to face Mr. Trump?
Same parties, same ministers, same caucus, same ideology, same hostility against Quebec. It's not just because the leader changes that the philosophy will magically change overnight.
You are all proposing, or just about all of you are proposing tax cuts. We'll see them up on the screen here.
100% Pierre
Mr.
and
Carney announced that on the
Blanchet
first day of the
talked
campaign. Mr.
100%.
Poilievre's been announcing them for a long time. So for a couple earning $90,000 a year, you can see the numbers up here. $1,299 in savings for the Conservatives, $1,011 for the NDP, $577 for the Liberals. And the cost of those measures is really what I want to underline here. Mr. Poilievre, you're spending more on tax cuts than the NDP or Liberals. Now, you've all arrived here this evening with no costed financial plan. It's been a long time since we've seen that at the time of the leaders' debate, the leaders don't have a costed plan. So we don't know how you're going to pay for these tax cuts. Now, I'm going to be careful how I word this, but don't you think it's irresponsible to Canadian voters to do this? Mr. Carney, you said you've got the numbers, but where's your costed plan?
As I've just said, we'll be presenting our costed platform this weekend.
But why not earlier at an event?
There are 10 days left in the election campaign. It's about the same thing as Mr. Poilievre, as I've seen. And it is going to be costed, and the operational budget will be cleaned up. We'll balance it in 3 years, but at the same time, we will be investing in Canada and in Canadians.
Mr. Poilievre, where would you make the cuts? This comes back to my earlier question to Mr. Carney. In terms of the costed plans, what do you have to hide? Will transfers to provinces go down, for example?
We're going to cut consultants. Believe it or not, a Canadian family is spending $1,400 in federal tax just to pay for consultants. That's been a 100% increase. I'm going to cut consultants. Secondly, we're going to cut the cost of bureaucracy through attrition. People will be retiring, and we don't need to replace all of them. We can slowly, gradually reduce the cost of the bureaucracy. Third, we're going to pass a dollar-for-dollar bill. For every new dollar in spending, there will have to be a dollar in reduced spending. And we are going to generate $70 billion more in revenues.
And Mr. Carney don't have a costed plan that we've seen.
We are the only party that has talked about ways to increase government revenues. We have talked about closing tax loopholes, getting rid of tax havens.
We want to tax everyone.
Empowering the CRA to go after corporations that are not paying their taxes. These are not tax increases. These are taxes that are already supposed to be paid. The CRA has said that tens of billions of dollars in revenues are being lost. Pierre Poilievre has been very honest with Canadians. He will cut healthcare.
Not true. No,
he will
not true.
cut
That's false.
EI. He said
That's
this back
false.
in 2022 when he became leader of the Conservative Party.
That's false.
And Mark Carney has also said very clearly that he would make massive cuts.
No.
He would cut $43 billion worth
For the
of
first
spending.
time.
Mr. Carney, then Mr. Blanchet.
No, that's not right at all. I've said there is an operational budget that's over $200 billion a year. And that budget has grown 9% year over year over the last 10 years. We need to slow down that growth. And we'll do that with technology, we'll do that with attrition, as Mr. Poilievre has suggested, and we can do that, and we will do that, and it's necessary, but we're not going to cut transfers to individuals, nor transfers to the provinces.
So the provinces will not get less money. Mr. Blanchet, is that what you believe?
Well, I've an issue with this. These are Harry Potter financial frameworks. You need a lot of magic to make it work. There needs to be more money, but we're going to do cuts. They want to be more conservative than the Conservatives. Basic economics state that when there's a threat of recession or slowdown, that is when the state, well, that's why we're not saying cut taxes, we're saying make good investments. We want to invest in our military forces. It's the time to do so with Canadian companies, the Quebec tramway that Mr. Poilievre doesn't want to do. That's what we have to do. We have to have targeted investments, health transfers so that the Maisonneuve-Rosemont hospital can be renovated. It's time to invest in infrastructure, public infrastructure with public money so that everyone can keep their jobs.
So no tax cuts?
No, it wouldn't be a tax cut. There would be a specific budget for it.
It's necessary.
We have to keep going. They want to do one thing and the other. Cut, but somehow make more money. Something doesn't work.
We've started with the cost of living. We have to cut taxes for the cost of living.
What Mr. Blanchet said is true. You are talking about a magic spell here, Mr. Carney. This is one rare moment where we agree. On February 16th, you sat down with Rosemary Barton and you said that you would cut spending in the operating budget.
Operational spending. That's different.
You said,
one at a time, please,
that this would affect transfers for healthcare and to individuals.
No, Mr. Roy, no.
I have a question.
That's not right at all. That's not
Please.
right at all.
Mr. Carney, you'll have the opportunity to answer later. The question that people are asking themselves, and you may have heard this, Mr. Singh, you've promised that every Canadian will have a family doctor, that there will be vastly more nurses. Does the federal government need to continue developing more national plans like pharmacare and dental care? Or, option two, should they be giving more money to the provinces for health care? Mr. Carney, you'll start off. More programs or more money?
First of all, the priority for the federal government is to invest and to catalyze investment in the most serious crisis we're facing in our lives. We need to catalyze private investment in our economy to create new and good jobs. That's the first thing we need to do in terms of transfers to provinces for healthcare.
Do that by raising taxes.
Yes, there are limits to the federal government's activity. No new programs. No.
Mr. Blanchet?
It's easy. All premiers from the provinces and territories unanimously asked for a 35% health transfer. I would like to re-explain it. The federal government receives more money than it needs. It needs $10, it gets $12. Quebec needs $10, but it only gets $8. So the federal government could take its surplus and say, I would like to invest in your jurisdictions. The Liberals and the Conservatives agree on this, and the NDP loves butting its nose into provincial jurisdiction. The Constitution sets out jurisdictions. The easiest way is to give the money without conditions.
You've said that we do need to step in, that we need to have more programs like this.
Let me explain. Absolutely, we need to increase health transfers, absolutely, in order to help out the provinces. What is more, we are now in the midst of a crisis, a healthcare crisis. It is being felt here in Quebec and all throughout the country. We should recognize that a leader is someone who looks for solutions, not excuses. I believe that we should be investing more in fixing problems. And yes, we can work with the provinces to hire more healthcare workers. We can work with them to get through this crisis. Pharmacare is one area where everyone can come together to bring down the cost of medication. We believe in helping people.
Folks, we want Singh to do well.
Deciding Quebec's priorities isn't your jurisdiction. I don't go to your house and tell you how to paint your wall, do I? It's money that you would refuse to give Quebec.
We can do two things at once. We can transfer money and then work with the provinces on other solutions.
Mr. Poilievre, more money to the provinces or more federal programs?
I think the federal government is taking too much tax revenues and delivering too little, and that's the Liberal track record after 10 years. And the question for Canadians is, you can't afford your groceries and you can't afford your rent or your housing because it's too expensive now after 3 terms of Liberal government. Will a 4th Liberal term change things for you, enough for you to be able to buy a house and have a beautiful life?
Okay. For the health program, I didn't understand.
On health care, no. What I propose on that is a program that the federal government could coordinate, and that is to do with licenses for doctors and nurses. It would be a voluntary program, as has previously existed, to allow immigrants to be licensed and be able to work in our hospitals to reduce your wait times.
So everyone agrees on health transfer. The question is, the 13 premiers of the 13 economies of Canada. Canada doesn't have one economy, it has 13 economies. These requests were made to stop the deterioration of the healthcare system.
Next theme. Energy and climate.
The carbon tax was something that was supposed to help the environment, but now, what are we doing for the environment? It worries me a bit. Our planet is starting to die. I really want to see someone who can prioritize climate change and the economy in Canada. We shouldn't be building a pipeline. The environmental consequences are very serious. Even if for ecological reasons it's not the best solution. Well, I think we have to think about it. There was a good project in place, but then it was dropped. A pipeline would have a major impact. We may have to make sacrifices if we want to be more independent.
Drill, baby,
drill, baby, drill, says Donald Trump. But I have a very simple question for you, and I would like just a simple answer as well. You have 35 seconds open debate. Do you want Canada to increase oil production? Yes or no? Mr. Singh.
I would be in favor of investing in clean energy, renewable energy. With our public money, I would spend on projects like an east-west clean energy grid. That's the sort of thing we need. We need renewable energy for our future. That is where we should invest our public funds.
So more or less oil or the same amount as right now? You want to increase it? That's what people want to know. Are you increasing oil production?
There are a few measures that I support. Investing in clean energy. Bringing down our emissions.
We'll get to that in the open debate later. But the question is very simple, I think. Mr. Carney.
Yes, more oil so that we can reduce our imports, especially our imports from the United States, a country that is threatening us right now. But in order to do that, we need to have low-risk oil. Canada is a low-risk country, and low-cost oil. Canada's more or less that right now, but we also need low-carbon oil because we need to be competitive over the long term. So at the same time, we need to have pipelines. We need to invest in carbon stockage, carbon capture as well. That's very important for our competitiveness.
To that later. Mr. Poilievre, should we produce more oil in Canada?
Yes. And we have to be able to get it to market by pipeline. Unfortunately, the other parties passed an unconstitutional law, C-69, which is a no more pipelines bill, and that's why Canadians and Quebecers now have to buy 139,000 barrels of U.S. oil every day. I will repeal C-69 to allow for the construction of hydroelectric projects, mines, and also pipelines so that we can get around Donald Trump and be sovereign when it comes to energy.
There's a competition as to who will be the biggest oil head here. The Americans buy our oil, we buy their oil, because that's how geography works. I want less oil, but let us be clear. The one that approved 9B for Enbridge was me when I was the Environment Minister, but I say that we have to progressively wean off of petrol and oil because the cost on families will be far worse than what Mr. Poilievre says. Paying for the consequences of climate change will cost billions of dollars every single year per family. Let us invest in Quebec's green energy.
I'd like to ask a question to launch the debate. Mr. Carney, for 17 years now, the Liberals have been telling us that the only way to fight against climate change is to put a price on carbon. With the carbon tax, there was elections on this. But the first day you came to power, you abolished this tax. What should Canadians understand from this? Is the fight against climate change no longer a priority for Liberals?
Not at all. It is still a priority, and it's a priority for Canada. We're talking a lot about diversifying our trade partners around the world. The European Union. We need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in manufacturing and energy in all of our products so that we can have better access to that market. But in terms of the carbon tax, we cut the consumer carbon tax. And that covers about 6% of the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We are maintaining the industrial carbon tax for big polluters, but we're creating a new market so that major polluters will pay people and households to make green decisions.
You would axe the second carbon tax as well, the industrial tax. You would eliminate both. So there's not even a fight against climate change or no incentive except
That's not true.
Less gas.
There's a cost associated with using energy already, but my approach is a pragmatic one. For example, the National Bank calculated that if we export our natural gas, our liquefied natural gas, to India, for example, to replace coal, that could reduce emissions in India by 2.5 billion tons. That's 3 times the emissions of all of Canada, and would also bring a lot of money back to Canada. The Liberals are blocking the construction of the pipeline and of the LNG plants. For example, LNG Quebec is a project that would make it possible for us to sell our energy very profitably to Europe and reduce Europe's dependence on Putin. And that's what I would like to do instead of feeding into Putin's war machine.
Mr. Carney's abolition of the carbon tax means that Canadians outside of Quebec will receive a rebate for several weeks still for a tax that has been cut. So this puts Quebec in an unjust position. What are you asking in this respect?
Another element. It might give Mr. Carney's an opportunity to answer. Last year, Canada invested $30 billion in oil. Trans Mountain cost $40 billion. It took 9 years to build it. That means that with only just these elements, that's $16 billion of Quebec money that was invested in oil. Do you want a great energy worksite? It's Quebec's green worksite. So let's invest there. With regard to the $3.7 billion, the government would preemptively reimburse the tax carbon. Now the carbon tax. Now they've cancelled the carbon tax before the elections, but they're still sending reimbursements for expenditures that people won't have to do because the carbon tax no longer exists. Quebec is responsible and still has a cap and trade system like California. We're being penalized. We're taking $800 million out of Quebecers' pockets. That's $100 per person, including newborn babies. $800 from everyone's pockets. $100 from everyone's pockets to offer electoral baubles just before an election.
Is there not an
most people have never
it's not an
heard
injustice.
Peter's arguments that
Quebec
don't
is
watch
a pioneer
the speeches, so this is key.
in carbon markets, and that's clear. First point. And the second point, Canadians outside of Quebec and British Columbia have paid the carbon tax, and as such, they receive the carbon rebate, and all Canadians, including Quebecers, will receive the middle-class tax cut. Because we have what we've done, there's a principle here. There's an important principle here.
Yes, you're going to speak in a moment. Just in terms of clarity for those who are listening to us, what reimbursement are you talking about?
The rebate. No, not in Quebec. No, not in Quebec.
But
But there's a principle.
Gas prices are higher.
There's a principle here. We are making people whole, people who paid the carbon tax, and we're doing that in a fair way.
Europe, Quebec, and California has a system that incentivizes companies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. It's about 9 cents per litre, and it's much cheaper than the potential effects and the future effects of climate change.
Just to get back to the debate topic, we are talking about the climate crisis here. That is not something that is a long way off. This is something going on right now. We are already in the midst of the climate crisis. We have seen it here in Quebec. Extreme temperatures, forest fires, flooding. I agree with Mr. Blanchet that it is too high a cost to bear, so we need to do something. I spoke with one mother before I became a father, and she said, I'm worried about my children when they play outside. I'm worried about the BC forest fires. Our children cannot breathe the air outside. And now that I am a father, I feel the same anxiety. With forest fires, people cannot breathe the air. So we need to do something. We need to protect our environment, and we need to protect our children.
Mr. Poilievre, you're clear. You're saying that we need a pipeline. If, in spite of all of your efforts with the Indigenous nations, they say no, would you impose it in spite of all of your efforts? If Quebec says no, would you impose it?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't assume that, because most Quebecers want a pipeline. According to the polls, look, there's no social acceptability for the status quo. Thank you very much.
That is the most empty sentence I've ever heard in this debate so far.
Can I answer the question?
No, it's nonsense, absolute nonsense.
I'll say what it means. I'll tell you. Quebecers who buy oil from Alberta, it's got to go through the U.S. currently, which gives Donald Trump power over our own energy. You say you're in favor of sovereignty. I'm in favor of economic sovereignty and energy sovereignty, and that requires a pipeline
yet another
across Canada.
scarecrow. The U.S. will never bomb their economy so much by sacrificing a hugely profitable product. That's such an amazing argument. How much will your pipeline cost? Trans Mountain cost $40 billion, but now you want a 4,600-kilometer pipeline without investors, with Europe that doesn't even want it in the first place.
Just to clarify, I would never subsidize pipelines. That's unnecessary. They're very profitable. The only reason why it's expensive now is because there are rules and legislation that prevent the construction of pipelines because of bureaucracy. We're going to get rid of red tape. We're going to open this up to...
I'll ask my question again.
Cutting environmental regulations.
If Indigenous nations, in spite of all your nice efforts, I'm talking about Mr. Carney and you who want a pipeline, if they refuse, what do you do?
Refuse? Are you saying across the board?
Yes, we've seen this.
Because
he can't say that. He doesn't get to impose his will.
Mr. Poilievre, if there are Indigenous nations or provinces that are against it, what do you do?
Key answer.
Well, there are others who will be in favor. For example, Mr. Carney opposed a pipeline in the West, which would have enabled us to sell our oil to Asia, the Northern Gateway project. 80% of First Nations were in favor, 20% were against. And in a case like that, I think the majority rules. And I think we need to allow our companies to pay some of their taxes directly to First Nations to fight poverty through industry and production. That's our approach.
Would you be ready to impose one?
No, never impose. Can I respond, please? Never impose. No, but a couple of points.
So you want 100% consensus.
First
Never
of all,
happens.
Our
No pipelines getting
relationship
built
with the United States has changed everything. So imports from the United States and geography, as Mr. Poilievre has said, around pipelines, those are problems. Those are national security problems for us, and we need to act. That's the first point. Second, on March 21st, there was a meeting of the premiers. All the premiers were here in Ottawa, and we sat down and we agreed. All the premiers signed an agreement to have an energy corridor that would cover oil, natural gas, clean energy, and critical minerals. And with that, and with a process with Indigenous leaders, we can and we could have a solution to this problem. And that's an example of leadership. That's an example of bringing leaders together to meet a national goal. We need to do more than that over this crisis.
I'll ask the question again. If ever Indigenous nations
No, I've said no.
against
I've said
it,
no.
you forget the project?
Well, no.
You cannot force projects on people.
Listen, it's a question.
I have another question about the environment. Here's the question. You have said that you are a pragmatic person. Do you agree that it is not pragmatic to continue to subsidize oil companies with billions of dollars? That's not pragmatic at all. Would you agree?
Well, I agree with that principle.
Okay, then will you commit to stopping these subsidies?
Absolutely. It's clear.
This is why you need New Democrats. Look at that. We got a commitment from Mr. Carney.
New. It's not a new commitment.
This is why you need New
That's
Democrats.
not a new commitment. Let's be very clear.
Mid-February, British Columbia. You, like all other Canadian leaders, said something in English that was, if necessary, you would use the executive emergency powers. You said it. I heard it again yesterday. You would force pipelines through Canada and through Quebec. After that, 2 days after that, with Mr. Roy.
That's not it. That's not it at all.
No, please be nice. We're almost friends. But then you said to Monsieur Roy, I would never like to force this. So it's not rules that stop this. It's social acceptability that stopped this pipeline because people said no.
Mr. Carney, please reply.
Okay, no. It's the use of emergency powers for the federal government. That's for federal approval. But there also has to be approval, for example, here in Quebec. There has to be approval from the provinces and the support of Indigenous people. This is Canada. That's how Canada works. But another point, if I may, we're starting to see cooperation agreements come into place with the provinces to have one project, one evaluation, and that's going to accelerate the approval of major projects in Canada.
Right, Mr. Blanchet, you said that I have a greater chance of signing the Canadian Constitution than approving a pipeline. But how could you really paint yourself in such a corner and say never, ever? If our relationship with the U.S. gets worse, the pipeline goes to the United States, if our ports become trickier in terms of imports,
It's a good moderator,
what would you do? What would
Mr.
you
Trump's
tie your hands?
threat is a very serious one, but he won't self-destruct the American economy. And Americans think that Canadian oil is in their backyard. There's no rule that stops oil from being built or circulating, but Quebecers didn't want it, and Mr. Carney said, I will like to respect Quebec's environmental rules. So there are certain elements that are incoherent from him.
Never.
It's still no, because Quebec is the best placed in the world to develop a green super energy market that goes right to the south without asking Ottawa's permission. Why would we invest in oil that doesn't have economic benefits for Quebec if it means that we still pay more at the pump?
Quick comments. You are slightly behind in terms of the tramway and the third link. We're talking about the environment and public transit as well. So the third link, would you fund this or the tramway? One or the other, or both?
Yes, for the Quebec City Tramway, we support public transit. We are against projects that are bad for the environment.
So you're against the third link?
Exactly. We are against the third link. We support the tramway. One solution to address the climate crisis, while at the same time helping our economy, is to invest heavily in public transit. This would help municipalities, this would help provinces. We could work together with them and use transfers to provide more funding for these projects. And they're the sort of projects we need. They would create good jobs while at the same time helping Canada reduce emissions.
Mr. Poilievre, tramway or a third link, both, or just the third link?
Just the third link. You have to make choices. And I would speak to people in the regions today. The other parties are against the third link, and they want to ban gas-powered cars. That's not practical in the regions of our country. You need a truck, you need a car in order to live in regional areas. So I'm going to reverse that. You'll be able to keep your truck. We will build highways and bridges so that you can live a good life in the
Mr.
regions.
Blanchet, both projects?
The Quebec government wants the tramway. The city of Quebec City, rather, wants the tramway. The federal government needs to give the money required to the provincial government for the tramway. We don't know what a third link looks like. We don't know where it's going to go, under, over. We don't know what color it's going to be.
You were supposed to give your opinion on that for the past three debates.
Please remind me of my past.
Mr. Carney?
Well, I can be quick. Tramway, yes, because there is a project that's underway. We support it. And as Mr. Blanchet has said, there is no project right now for the third link.
But I think the third link will be a blue one.
It'll be blue? Right.
I don't have a lot of time left, but I'll add one more question. Do we have to speed up the development of nuclear power?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And for a couple of reasons.
Across Quebec, in Ontario?
Well, yeah. It's a choice that Quebec and the provinces will make. But we have a major advantage here in Canada. We have uranium. We have big nuclear companies, including Westinghouse, Candu, and others, and we have technology in small modular reactors. So it's a great opportunity.
I understand there are worlds in the countries in the world that need nuclear energy. I don't think Canada needs nuclear energy. Quebec doesn't want it. I'm not going to interfere in Canadian energy,
well,
but
it could be reviewed.
No, Quebecers don't want nuclear energy. I'm also the one that managed the closure of the Gentilly plant.
But we're not going to reopen it.
As a national project, I am in favor of an east-west energy grid that would connect Quebec with Manitoba and BC to transport clean energy. It could. I'm not so much in favor of nuclear energy. I support renewable and hydro energy more.
In favor. Yep. That's one of the best sources of electricity. It provides 60% of the electricity in Ontario. Unfortunately, bureaucracy slows down construction without adding any safety. So I would take the politicians off the Nuclear Safety Commission and allow scientists to do the work so that we can add that source of energy to the portfolio.
This is the first time I've heard Mr. Poilievre say something pro-science.
Immigration. Next theme, immigration and foreign affairs.
All right, folks. Here we go. This is what they want to take off tomorrow.
There are lots of issues with immigration that are linked to Donald Trump. It's hard to immigrate these days. I'd like to stay if I can find a good job. We have to deal with people who are arriving in droves because people are arriving and they don't have work. Should we let them in or not? Why not? Why not welcome them if we have the capacity? Do you think we should let in anyone who wants to come? In the United States, there's one rule. In Canada, there's another. I think everyone should follow the rule. We know there are over 500,000 Haitians currently living in the United States who are now being threatened with deportation. They might lose their temporary protection. I'll show you the numbers here. This is the number of people crossing the border in Saint-Bernard-de-la-Colle. 1,411 people in the first half of April. That's more than in March, February, or January. So you can see the numbers are growing. Simple question. You have 35 seconds each. Would you accept these Haitians into Canada or not? Mr. Carney.
Well, first of all, this is a question of humanity. This is a human issue. And these are some of the most vulnerable people in North America. But there are limits. We have to be human, but we have to be realistic. Canada cannot accept everyone. And we have an agreement with the Americans, the Safe Third Country Agreement. And under that agreement, we will send back most asylum seekers.
So they would be mostly sent back to the U.S. Mr. Blanchet.
The rules aren't tributary to the origin of the requester. We can't say we'll welcome the Haitians, but tough luck to the Venezuelans. The rules need to be the same for everyone. I'm particularly sensitive to this because I often meet with Haitian representatives. They are francophones, and so it's easier for them to integrate into Quebec. If Quebec is able financially to welcome them, then I'm sympathetic. But the rules have to be applied, and Quebec's welcoming capacity is at its very limit.
The formal rule now would be to send them back because they are in a safe third country, i.e. the U.S. Mr. Singh.
In general, we should do our part. It's a question of humanity and compassion. We appreciate the fact that our country is founded on immigration. That is something important to us. We want immigration levels that are in line with our needs. But yes, we need to take in people, but if we cannot accept people,
remember polling across Canada.
Well, we don't want them to have a bad life here in Canada and Quebec, so we need immigration, but we cannot take everyone.
Yes or no?
The specific question?
The question is,
do we accept those people?
For the people crossing the border at Lacolle, would they be welcome to Canada or not? Because we have the right to send them back under the Safe Third Country Agreement.
Unfortunately, they have to be returned because immigration has to follow the normal entry points. Quebecers are extremely generous and welcoming. They welcomed my wife, as Mr. Blanchet mentioned, but the Liberal government has abused Quebecers' generosity with an out-of-control immigration system. The population has grown 3 times faster than the number of new homes built. This has created a housing crisis in Quebec. They're at the breaking point. And the government of Quebec has been given the power to choose immigrants. That was under the Mulroney government that power was delegated to Quebec. So we need to have realistic numbers, realistic based on our housing capacity.
Here. What Mr. Poilievre is saying is that immigrants should be blamed for something that is really the fault of successive Conservative and Liberal governments who have not invested enough in our resources, who have not built enough housing, who have not welcomed people in the way that they should have been welcomed. This cannot be blamed on immigrants.
All right.
That's not true.
Quebec is now asking, given the number of asylum seekers in its territory, for $500 million. That was the amount they asked for in 2024. Mr. Poilievre, you'll be starting this open debate. Would you be sending a $500 million check to Quebec?
We have to work with the government of Quebec to fix the damage the Liberals caused with an out-of-control immigration system. And I also have to say that I reject the Century Initiative, which is a Liberal policy to balloon Canada's population to 100 million people. That's extreme. I think we should go back to immigration levels that are such that the population never grows faster than the number of houses, jobs, or healthcare services available.
Would you give more money to Quebec? And more generally, where would you like to have the immigration quota set?
Yes. We'll start with the second part. We need to have a cap on all types of immigration for a certain amount of time so that we can increase our capacity to welcome newcomers to Canada, including in housing, in training and language training here in Quebec, and make sure that the social safety net can accept them. And in those circumstances...
the targets announced by your predecessor, Mr. Trudeau, you would bring them down further, is that correct?
Well, there are some challenges here in Quebec, for example. challenges with temporary foreign workers, for example. And it's a question of distribution, if I can say it that way. The distribution of workers across Quebec. And there's a shortage of workers. But we will maintain the cap on immigration for certainly a couple of years so that we can increase our ability to welcome newcomers.
Would you reduce the number of immigrants to Canada in general?
Instead of answering with a simple yes or no, I would want to base our response on the facts. It is obvious that we need immigration. When I speak to Quebec farmers, they tell me, yes, we need immigrants to work on our farms. When I talk to small and medium businesses, they tell me that we need immigrants. The question is, what level of immigration? We would base our immigration levels on the findings of an expert panel, which would study our capacities. Then we would have a data-based number. But I do not want to fall into the trap of fear-mongering or blaming immigrants for things. We need a facts-based, needs-based approach.
Temporary foreign workers are temporary. They're a different category. Foreign students are a separate category, and they are essential for our post-secondary establishments in Quebec and in Canada. Unfortunately, it's being used as a roundabout way to get asylum, and asylum is also taken advantage of through smuggling and organized crime. We don't want to import vulnerable workers because we simply need people. Asylum seekers should be people who are in distress that we need to welcome based on our welcoming capacity. We are not currently in Quebec able to welcome as many people that are arriving. Quebec needs to be able to establish what its targets are. And one clear element, the federal parliament, with a Bloc Québécois initiative, decided to force the federal government to consult provinces within 100 days to determine how many immigrants would be welcomed. No one can decide, apart from Quebec, how much Quebec can accept and welcome.
Another rare moment where I agree with Mr. Blanchet. Temporary foreign workers are often victims of power abuses. We would restrict the use of workers who are exploited by major corporations.
The Centre Initiative was 100 million immigrants in Canada before the end of the century. Dominic Barton, a parliamentary committee, said that they did not take into account the uniqueness of Quebec, and one of the two co-authors of the Centre Initiative and 100 million people is now one of Mr. Carney's close advisors.
Mr. Carney, on a different subject now, would you say that the immigration system in Canada is going off the rails, or has gone off the rails in the last 7 or 8 years?
Yes. The system isn't working. And especially after the pandemic. Our population has gone up, I think, at about 3% per year because of immigration. And that's why we need to have a cap for a certain period of time. And I'd like to say that Canadians, Quebecers, and all Canadians, they want to welcome immigrants. There's no problem with Canadians' attitudes here at all. It's the responsibility of all of us to increase our capacity to welcome newcomers.
Is it normal? Now, in France, it takes 6 months. In Germany, 8 months. So, why do asylum seekers coming to Canada take at least 3 years to be processed?
Because Canada is obstinate in welcoming more people than they can process, house, and they're not taking into account the proportionality of every province and territory.
I spoke with federal public servants, and they told me that there is a lack of resources. There aren't enough workers to manage all the files that are coming in. It's unthinkable
that's
that
the problem.
people have to wait 3 years for an answer.
But is that not the
It's
big
a
problem,
huge
Mr. Poilievre?
problem. So we need to have more people working on this. People who can make decisions, or at the very least provide an answer, because it is entirely unacceptable that we have people waiting so long.
Mr. Poilievre, is this problem solvable?
Yes. Look, it's all about efficiency. By
listen up.
screening out bogus asylum seekers, that's what's slowing things down. We could reduce processing times by getting rid of the bogus claimants. And when people are forum shopping, when they've been to other places, that also slows things down and discourages genuine claimants. My point of view is that if someone's in danger in their country of origin, they should be able to decide to come to Canada. But if they're not refugees, for example, we've seen a situation in Mexico where people came here without ever needing to be refugees. They never needed asylum, and that causes a bottleneck in the system. And so what we're going to do is ensure that genuine refugees can come here and have their lives saved through the generosity of Canadians.
But how do you separate the real ones from the non-real ones?
Well, that's the problem. The machine, the apparatus is too cumbersome. And Mexico was one of the causes in the problem. So by eliminating that
Mr. Carney,
source, that
3
helps
years.
alleviate
Is that an
the
acceptable
problem.
wait time in Canada?
No, it's not acceptable. It's inhumane. It's inhumane for asylum seekers. And that's an indication that there is a problem with productivity in that department. That takes resources, but it's also a question of productivity.
Why not hitting the brake pedal with kindness, of course? Why not slow things down until we have a good system and a good public service for immigration that can deal with files in a few months? The rhythm is far too quick, and so we can't succeed at this rate. People, for economic reasons or who are in distress for other reasons, come to Canada and they're lost because their files aren't being processed.
You can conclude, Mr. Carney.
I more or less agree with that, but we need to be, as you've said, we need to be neutral. We need to act in a neutral and fair way.
All right.
A fair way for
I
all.
want to save some time to talk about two other important files: international aid, Ukraine, and Gaza. I think we've understood your position on immigration. The question is simple. Should we cut international aid or not? I'll give you some figures here. $2.1 billion is being given to Ukraine currently. That's a large amount of money for Canada. Ethiopia also. Haiti. There's a long list of other countries that we could have put up on the board. Mr. Poilievre, you've said that we need to cut international aid. What would you cut? Ukraine, Ethiopia, Haiti?
No. I would start by cutting off China. The Liberal government gave $250 million to the Chinese Infrastructure Bank in order to build pipelines, highways, and other infrastructure to promote the expansion of Beijing's empire. I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer money. Also, we saw UNRWA, the organization in the Gaza Strip that took part, or whose employees took part in the attacks of September 7th. So I don't think we should be funding that type of activity either. The aid we give should be directly to people in need and not through bureaucracies, multinational bureaucracies and terrorists.
Let's talk about Gaza. Currently, Doctors Without Borders, just today, said that the situation was worse than ever. So if you cut UNRWA, which might be an imperfect organization, but if you cut aid to them, how can Canada help Palestinians?
With not-for-profit groups, NGOs that will deliver the services directly to Gazans.
The only group
on the ground.
I'd like to
because it's a waste of money when that money that's not even getting to the people?
I will start by saying if there's anyone in an organization with a problem, then yes, that should be investigated. But what you said about UNRWA was disgusting. This is the only organization that is helping out people on the ground. And you painted the entire organization with the same brush, calling it a terrorist organization. That is unacceptable. That is hateful, and it is entirely inappropriate.
Mr. Carney, on the subject of Palestinians and international aid, would you continue to fund UNRWA?
Yes. We are in a situation where we need to have an immediate ceasefire. We need to have all the hostages returned, and we need to resume humanitarian aid to Gaza. And at this time, we have $100 million from the Government of Canada that is ready to be provided in humanitarian aid to Gaza with organizations that are working there, and that's key. And I agree with Mr. Singh. There are only a couple of groups that are working in Gaza right now.
Mr. Blanchet?
It's a very unique situation. In Canada and in Quebec, the Jewish community is victims of radical Islamists. Palestinians are currently victims of terrible violence from the Israeli regime. We have to help people in distress. There and elsewhere, it's the best way to have international aid that is not military. We need to allow people to live happily where they live. And Palestine will not become Mar-a-Lago for Americans that just want to chill on the coast. We have to see where the money goes. We have to see how much money is taken by Hamas. It's maybe less now, but it was huge in the past. A lot of money was taken from the Palestinians. We have to help Palestinians at the end of the day.
International aid. So the three of you on this side would continue. Mr. Poilievre, do you have an amount in your mind of how much you would cut in international aid?
We're going to target waste in all programs. We will audit to identify examples like UNRWA when they used funds for Hamas. We're also going to find other examples of international waste because...
Sorry.
No. The decision is to protect Canadian taxpayers. We all agree that there's a lot of suffering here in Canada, and Canadians can't afford to pay their bills. So we need to find some savings in order to reduce the cost of living here in Canada.
Mr. Roy, I would like to come back to...
And we need to look at all departments in order to find those savings and protect affordability.
Protect the workers. Question of Gaza.
Mr. Singh, I'm sorry, everyone's had their piece to say.
The situation is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see innocent people being killed. Mr. Carney, why don't you call things as they are? This is a genocide. People in Israel do deserve peace and security, but people in Palestine do as well. What is going on right now is a genocide against people
Mr.
in
Carney,
Palestine.
you can conclude.
Why won't you admit it?
The situation in Gaza, in the Middle East, is horrible. But
it's a genocide.
But I never use that word in a political way to politicize the situation.
All right.
But it's a matter of facts.
That was Mr. Carney's response. I think we've understood your question, Mr. Singh. Now, we'll be moving on to the next theme, identity and sovereignty.
Push the pro-Palestine voters over to his side there.
It would be good to put flags out on our balconies to show our Canadian pride. I was surprised to see how proud people were. We're Canadian. We will not be Americans. I think we're going to be more united. I think I haven't seen this in a long time. So, yes, we've all seen this across Canada. All commentators have seen this. There is a wave of patriotism in Canada, but we've also seen deep divisions in the West. Alberta says it may separate. We've given 6 months to the next Prime Minister to meet its requests. Otherwise, there could be a crisis of national unity that is unprecedented. In Quebec, the Parti Québécois is nearing power and is promising a referendum during your term, possibly. At the end of the day, are we not as divided or as the U.S. or very divided? We'll go around the table. Mr. Poilievre first.
Unfortunately, yes, there are divisions all across Canada, all kinds of divisions. And I think that we've had a federal government that has divided everyone, pitting regions against one another and various groups against one another, social classes pitted against one another. We need to unite Canadians. We need to unite around our common identity that includes the French language, our English language, our military, the promise of Canada that anyone who works hard can have a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, is there not division in Canada?
When I travel throughout the country, I observe great unity, great solidarity. Canadians want to defend our country. They do not want to become the 51st state. They want to protect what is dear to our hearts. When I talk to people about identity, people tell me our identity is taking care of one another. We have programs for that. For example, our healthcare system. We need to protect these systems and strengthen them, not cut them or sacrifice them. Now is the time to bring people together.
Thank you.
To get things done with our solidarity.
Thank you. Mr. Blanchet.
I think that people confuse certain things. Some people think that all Canadians should follow one single line behind the federal government, and so we only have one economy. Mr. Trump's fear, or rather the threat of Mr. Trump has to be taken seriously, but instrumentalizing it for nation building in Canada, where Quebecers are being asked to be attached to their language as a frivolity, I can't agree with that.
Thank you. We'll go back.
Quebec's uniqueness is also economic, and we have to be on the same level
is there
playing
a
field.
division in Canada?
Well, there's always a risk, but I think that right now, Canadians are uniting, and they want to unite. Canadians want a positive agenda. There is solidarity here. Healthcare is a right here in Canada. It's not a big business like in the United States. We put a value on diversity here. And we also put importance on judicial independence. And, you know, the potential of Canada is enormous because we're all in this together.
Thank you. So open debate. Mr. Blanchet, how can we think that Quebec, if it's on its own and independent, could be stronger to stand up to Trump and in comparison with all of Canada right now?
Does Canada need to be a province of Mexico to be allied to Mexico against the states? We're not in that debate this week, but Quebec does not need to be a Canadian province to talk of its own voice. Our economy is doing fairly well, but our economy is different to that of Canada's, and the announcements that have been made have helped Ontario Steel, Ontario Banking, the Ontario automotive industry to fund aluminum. Western Oil. That is what those were the investments made. The counter-tariffs on aluminium are very harmful because people have to pay for the aluminium they sent to be processed in the States. There's then re-imported into Canada. $2 billion to the States in countervailing tariffs. For that, nothing happened. But now, $2 billion has simply been signed by Mr. Carney for the automotive industry. He sees himself as a negotiator, but he hasn't even been re-elected yet. Should Quebecers not make sure that they have a strong voice that collaborates. I've already said that we would work with Canada, but I've asked to speak to Mr. Carney, but he's never called me. He's never wanted to talk to me. I want Quebec to be at the negotiating table for a stronger negotiating position with Canada.
Is there also not a risk, like was the case with the automotive industry in Ontario, to this? Because this could happen to the detriment of saving other industries in our country. If we put all our eggs in the automotive basket.
No, not at all. For example, our counter tariffs for the aluminum sector and steel, no, they're not bad. They're not bad at all.
We import aluminium cans from the States that comes from our
that's
mined
not
aluminium
right at all. If I may, the counter tariffs for the aluminum sector are $30 billion. The counter tariffs, or $30 billion rather, the counter tariffs for the automotive sector, that's $8 billion. That's a huge difference because, there are a number of reasons for this, but our counter tariffs, it's not just for Quebec, it's for the workers there, are much higher.
I don't know where that money came from, and I don't know when the industry will get that money.
We are using the counter tariffs.
What was it, $2 billion for automotive? Immediately for them, because we're shaking in our boots when the automotive industry is at risk. But aluminium was not supported. There's no processing capacity. There's no help for temporary work losses. $2 billion for the automotive industry, but nothing for aluminium. When it's Ontario, the checks come flying, but it has to be the same for other places, especially Quebec.
That's the numbers. Your numbers are wrong.
Mr. Poilievre.
Yeah, but he's got a point when he says that the weakness in our country right now threatens our unity. Your Liberal government for 10 years has the worst track record on immigration, on housing, on inflation, on crime. But doesn't it embarrass you to ask Canadians for a fourth term of office after the worst Liberal record?
I've just become leader. And
same members of Parliament, it's the same old promises.
And I've been Prime Minister for 1 month. And in that month, we have an agreement with the provinces. We have an agreement with Australia. We have an agreement with France. We have an agreement with the United Kingdom. We have set up negotiations for the next Prime Minister, and that's a decision that people at home are going to make. And we've done all of that in this short time. And we've also cut the tax. We've put in place programs for workers who are most affected by this tariff war, and all that in 1 month.
Okay.
Quebec sent a letter with 5 requests. No one responded to it. We made requests, but we keep hearing, oh, we've spoken to provinces, things are great with Quebec, but we didn't get any response to our letter. Is it because of the final straight of the election campaign? What's going on?
Mr. Carney, you described healthcare as a right, and I agree with that. But you are talking about massive cuts to healthcare.
Not at all.
Admitted it.
Mr. Singh, I let you speak earlier.
The long-time Liberal government House Leader, Karina Gold, agreed that there would be
cuts. Mr. Singh, cut his mic. I let you speak more earlier, but now we're nearing the end. We're talking about Quebec and French. Does Quebec have the right to defend French, even at the cost of using the notwithstanding clause upstream? Mr. Poilievre.
Yes. Quebec must defend French. It's the common language of Quebec, and I will defend French. My father was a Francophone from Saskatchewan. I lost my French a little bit when I was a teenager, but I married a Quebecer. Our children speak French, and I understand why French needs to be protected, and that is why I will continue to support laws and policies that allow Quebec and the federal government to protect French all across Canada.
Using the notwithstanding clause to protect something. You're against that, Mr. Carney?
Well, there is a general question here around the use of the notwithstanding clause in a preventative way. And it's not necessarily a question just for Quebec. It's been used in Quebec, but it could also apply in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And it has. And so the question is, do we have rights and freedoms here in Canada? Are we equal? And we need to consider the right balance. Certainly, but the use of the notwithstanding clause in a preventative way, that's a question for the Supreme Court.
Mr. Blanchet, in terms of the use of the notwithstanding clause, obviously you have no problem with that.
Jean Chrétien, on behalf of Pierre Trudeau, negotiated with the provinces, and it led to the notwithstanding clause, and this wasn't signed on by Quebec. It was tested. It's not the type of use that is in question, it's how it is used. The Supreme Court has already decided. Mr. Carney wants to turn to the Supreme Court to disagree with itself in the decision it made with Quebec. It's all funded with Quebec money.
Interveners from Quebec who have challenged this to the Supreme Court.
You are going to take Quebec taxpayer money to contest a Quebec bill that is under Quebec jurisdiction. That was adopted by the National Assembly of Quebec.
Mr. Singh, on this notwithstanding clause for French.
I believe in protecting the French language. During this debate, I have tried to bring up health a few times. Mr. Roy cut me off a number of times. Look at my time on the clock. Every time I tried to bring up health care, I was responding directly to something that Mr. Carney said, because health is something that is important for me. It is about identity. It's something I am very passionate about, and every time I tried to bring it up, Mr. Roy called me out and cut me off. That is not fair.
Oh, that was actually
for me,
but okay.
The question of healthcare is crucial. When I talk to people on the street and ask them what is important to them, they say universal public healthcare. People ought to know that the other leaders on this stage tonight would cut healthcare funding. And I think that's wrong.
No.
Not now, Mr. Blanchet.
No, neither
the two
Mr.
major leaders have
nor
both
I have said
this,
that.
and I need to tell people because it's important. This is what I believe in. This is what I believe in and what the NDP believes in.
That's not right to make allegations like that.
We talked about health earlier. I let you speak, but now we're moving on to another topic.
Yes, but now we need to bring it up in the context of identity. What is Canadian identity? Healthcare. We have to bring it up in this part of the debate. Canadian identity is about taking care of one another. We need our universal public healthcare system. It should be strengthened. It should be protected. We are in the midst of a healthcare crisis. It's supposed to be an open debate, so we should be able to talk about whatever topic comes up.
There isn't a lot of risk when it comes to the health of a language in Quebec.
Let's talk about language.
There's healthcare issues in Quebec as well, and I am here to protect the healthcare system for everyone, including Quebecers.
Outside of Quebec, Mr. Singh and others, the weighting of francophones has gone from 6% in 71 to 3.5% in 2021. How will you reverse this trend? People are listening to you across Canada.
Well, first of all, we are going to increase the level of Francophone immigrants outside of Quebec. We'll increase that from 10 to 12%. Second, we will strengthen Radio-Canada and CBC with new governance structure and new money. Mr. Poilievre wants to cut that. We are going to strengthen the telefilm industry and the Canadian Council for the Arts so that we can increase training.
All right, Mr. Poilievre.
First of all, the Conservative Party supported the federal legislation to ensure that federally regulated workplaces in Quebec follow Bill 101. We also will increase funding to allow young people to take part in French immersion for Anglophones coming from outside Quebec, and that will enrich the French language. And third, we'll make sure Quebec has more control over immigrant selection so that they can better choose those who can be franchised and integrated into the labor market and Quebec culture. That's what we want to do to protect the French language.
Mr. Poilievre, of course, your position on Radio-Canada and the CBC has created a lot of concerns. You've continued to say that you would protect Radio-Canada because it provides a service to Francophone minorities across the country, but you would abolish the CBC. How is such a thing possible?
Well, it is possible. We have news networks.
But they share the same buildings. You understand how difficult it would be.
I do understand the situation. I will protect Radio-Canada's services because there's already other French language news services. TVA is an example. So it is possible to have news service that's focused on French news services, and the CBC can just operate with its own revenues as an NGO, as a non-governmental organization. The principle is that the government should simply do what the market cannot do, and the market would never be able to provide exclusive French services to Francophones all across Canada. So there is a role for the government to play in defending French news services. When I was a young person in Calgary, that was the only way for me to get news in French. So I would protect those services because there's a good reason to do that.
Let me translate that. Mr. Poilievre wants to get rid of Radio-Canada and CBC. And then he would write a check to other companies so that they can provide French language services. That's the wrong thing to do. We would protect Radio-Canada and CBC, especially in the context of misinformation, which is undermining our democracy. I am not a francophone, but I am a francophile. I love the French language. I have fallen in love with it. It enriches our country. Having Quebec benefits all of Canada. The forward-thinking ideas that have come out of Quebec, we need Quebec. We need the French language, and we will protect them.
For the first time since 2011, there are no women here as leaders. I met with a young woman. This is a very short clip. I met with her earlier this week. Do you have a question for the leaders, something you're concerned about? In Canada, the status of women. Yeah, the status of women. You're worried about things moving backward? Yes, that there could be a rollback of women's rights by some parties. That concerns me. My question, would you commit to making sure that there are no women's rights that are rolled back? And, for example, would you push for having free contraception, as is already the case in some provinces? Is that something that you would commit to, starting with Mr. Poilievre?
We will not eliminate that. We will protect women's rights. I have a message for Canadian women who are watching. We will not pass legislation that would restrict the right to abortion. That's been our policy for 20 years, and it won't change. That's a guarantee that I make to you. We will, in fact, broaden women's rights by dealing with crime against women. Women are often victims of assaulters who are released because of liberal legislation. They're released repeatedly, and that allows serious criminals to repeat offend against women. And we are going to lock those people up. We're going to lock those men up to protect women against violence.
That was a solid answer, folks.
Of course.
Solid answer.
Our party believes in women's rights. We would never allow for any backsliding on that front. You brought up pharmacare. Well, it was the NDP that forced the Liberal government to bring in pharmacare. It covers now diabetes medication, but also contraceptives, and we believe that is crucial. Rights are important, but being able to access the rights is also important. We are also the only party running a candidate slate that is half women. The other parties have seen backsliding on their candidate slates in terms of diverse people and women. But for us, it's an important issue. Our candidate slate must represent the Canadian public, and that means it should be half women. For us, we will always defend women's rights and also access
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet.
to those rights.
There is no member of the Bloc Québécois that will be able to table a bill or motions that are against abortion. Preventive Maid will also not be allowed. With American influence, we are in a very difficult place for women. There are many ways that invite women to participate in politics. We have reached parity with the Bloc Québécois. We wanted it to be 50-50, but in our current political culture, and I have many great women in my party, it's much more difficult at the federal level than in Quebec.
Yes, I think that this an aspect of politics right now, the negative politics that we're seeing, it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit women as candidates, and really any candidate. But absolutely, we defend the rights of women all the time. But what I'm concerned about is the use of the notwithstanding clause. Not in a preventative way, but after Supreme Court judgments have been made. What does that do? It takes away Canadians' rights and freedoms. And it creates, and Mr. Poilievre has proposed this I know the situation, but this is a very dangerous development, because if we start with that, abortion could be,
Give the right to reply.
the right to abortion could eventually be next.
Mr. Poilievre, you can answer.
Mr. Carney, I said in a case where a man kills 6 people in a premeditated way and the court released that person, that means he served 4 years for each life he took. The criminal in that case will be free in 50 years. You're talking about danger. That's what's dangerous. Liberal laws that allow criminals to circulate on our streets. I will never excuse for locking murderers up.
No, I'm sorry, but you're trying to change the Canadian Constitution.
All right, gentlemen.
That's what you've proposed.
I would use Section 33 to put an end to the crime that Liberals caused with their policies.
Where will you stop?
By stopping murderers, yes.
Everyone knows that there should be severe penalties for murder. You're trying to sow division here. Everyone agrees on that front. If someone kills someone, there needs to be a strong punishment. You're not special for proposing that.
No, the other 3
Everyone agrees.
All right, Mr. Blanchet. Very quickly, please.
Mr. Carney said that I voted for the new Official Languages Act bill. The money comes from the previous bill, and the official language minority community money comes from the bill. I was asked to bring changes. We brought the changes. We voted for, but we didn't want it to apply to Quebec because it harms Quebec.
Gentlemen, things didn't turn out perfectly, but Mr. Singh, you say you got 22 minutes compared to 24, 25. Roughly equitable. I'm sorry that I did have to cut off your mic, but I'd like to wish all 4 of you good luck with the rest of the campaign, and I hope that we'll see your costed plans as soon as possible so that we can see how much all of your promises will cost. And I hope that everyone listening tonight will be able to make an informed decision now. Voting starts this weekend.
And the game.
And The match? I don't know. There's still a couple periods left. All right, thank you so much for being with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes this debate. See you next time. Good night.
Okay, folks. So that concludes the French language debate. Now, let's get into some of the commentary. So, a couple things. I thought it was interesting that on the first question, they said, pick anything you want. Two things that you're going to do that have nothing to do with the U.S. So Pierre opened with cutting taxes and cutting GST for new homes. So that was interesting because I think he was trying to take as broad a brush as possible in reaching as many voters as possible. So GST on new homes, who's that mainly going to affect? He's targeting the young demographic there. Young demographic, and I don't mean 18 to 21, I mean between 18 to 30, 35. Potentially young families that are trying to buy that home and start their life. So that's the first part. The second one was cutting taxes, because he did slide in seniors there. So he's trying to tackle the affordability aspect of this, which is, or at least a few weeks ago, was the number two, or tied with Trump on some of these polls in terms of what is the most important issue for you as a Canadian. So he's trying to go after affordability with that. So that was interesting for me. As expected, everybody came out firing against Carney, and I don't know if Carney didn't expect it or not, but he just looked like a deer in the headlights. He was looking around and he was confused because he was probably with this mentality of, well, wait a minute, as CEO and chairman, nobody talks over me. Nobody talks over me. This isn't supposed to happen. So he seemed very stupefied that everybody was coming after him. What I was worried about early on, not that it started happening, but I was wondering how this would go. One of the biggest knocks on Pierre, that is the talking point, not that it's accurate, but the talking point is that Pierre is angry. He's just angry. He's an attack dog. He's unlikable. So I was curious to see how he would operate in this debate. Now, early he threw a bunch of barbs over at Carney, which was great to see, but that is good to serve his base, and it may not have been positive for the people that he's trying to win over. However, he then pivoted, and he pivoted very early, which was really, really good of him to do this. So he then brought everything back to him and focused on what he would do. Because one of the things that he could have slipped into is his day in, day out role as the official leader of the opposition. And what do you do as the official leader of the opposition? You attack. You attack and attack and attack and attack, and you show no mercy. But this is a different arena. He needs to it's almost like fencing instead of going in with your broadsword. So he needs to go in, shove his sword, take a swipe, and then he needs to step back and then bring it back to himself so he can show, this is the other guy. He's not doing a good job. This is why he won't do a good job. This is why I will do a good job. This is how I will lead. So that was good. That was really good that he did that, and he did that really early. He was controlled. He was polished. He tried smiling the whole time, and he was the only leader, the only one that had the wherewithal to look into the camera when it was prompted, because you can see on the cameras which one is active when you're up there. So he was the only one to try to look in the camera and speak directly to Canadians. So that was interesting. Carney was challenged on this whole notion of cutting and spending, and this whole concept that he brought in of operational budget versus, and he didn't talk about the other part, which is the capital part of the budget. And it was great that he was called out on that. And then he says, "Oh well, no, we're going to cut our operational spending." And what he's trying to do there is he's trying to imply fiscal responsibility to Canadians. The problem is what he didn't say, and time didn't allow him to be called out on it, but Blanchet did to a certain degree, is that he didn't say that, well, we're going to cut on OPEX, but I'm actually going to increase over here on the capital side. So the budget is probably still going to go up. Meanwhile, he's going to tell Canadians, well, the budget's going down, the operational budget's going down. And for the average Canadian that isn't necessarily familiar with a complete budget and what the anatomy of it is, they will most likely believe that. So that's another point that I noticed. On immigration, very, very key point here. Very big key point here. Yeah, Colette saying he got to use the word catalyze, yeah, several times. Yeah, that's what that is from Carney. He is bringing in the financial vocabulary, whether he's using it well or not, to try to sound impressive to Canadians, to put up this persona of, I'm a banker, I'm an economist, you need to trust me. That's what that was for. On immigration, so as some people mentioned, I love that Pierre brought up the Century Initiative. I love that Blanchet talked about the Century Initiative. And what disturbed me and should disturb everybody is Carney had said, we will put in temporary caps to immigration. And even then, he was called on by the moderator saying, okay, so are you going to reduce Trudeau's cap that he put in? And there's Tanya, read my mind there, so thank you for that. There was this talk about the Century Initiative, so I was glad that they both brought that up. And he was challenged, well, are you going to lower Trudeau's cap? And all he said was, well, we need to maintain the cap for the time being. And this is where the Mark Wiseman influence, because he sits on the board of the Century Initiative, this is where that should terrify all Canadians, especially Quebecers. Because what that means is, well, at some point, we need to open the floodgates again and let everybody in. So that's something very, very important that Mark Carney said that everybody should pick up on. On the CBC topic, so I don't know if Pierre, when he said the government should only do what the market can't do. So what that means, and he's very correct in saying that, is that when the free market cannot provide a service that is needed, he's saying that is when the government should step in. If there is no innovation, if there's no entrepreneurs that can jump in and fill that need that the market requires, then he's saying, sure, that's when the government should step in. And his argument is that the market is not providing and cannot provide, there's not enough competition for someone to take Radio Canada's place. So that's why he's saying we will continue to fund Radio Canada. What he's saying is that there's CTV, there's Global, there's National Post, there's Globe and Mail, there's other news organizations in Canada. So therefore, there's a market need that's being met independently of the government. So therefore, we don't need to be funding CBC. And one of the things that they had said, or implied that he'd said, is that, okay, so you're going to collapse CBC. And what he managed to get out, I don't think it was picked up very well, was, no, I'm not going to collapse CBC. I'm just going to take away their funding, and they can try and operate on their revenue model and see how that goes. You know, like every other business in Canada that isn't government funded. So that's what he had said there. I swear that he and Blanchet had a chat prior to this. Because there was very few times that Blanchet went at Pierre, and very few times, if any, I don't even recall one, that Pierre went after Blanchet. And the reason is because they don't gain anything by going after each other in this debate. They gain everything by both of them going after Mark Carney. And what Pierre did, and this is very, very smart, here's the chess that's playing out, is that Blanchette has to go hard at Carney. He has to. And he has to show his base and his voters that he's standing up to Ottawa. He's standing up to Canada. So what Pierre ended up doing very cleverly is he actually used Blanchette as the attack dog. You know, he didn't jump in to try to be the alpha dog in going after Carney over Blanchette. And why did he do that? Well, it doesn't matter if Pierre's going after Blanchette, or sorry, if Pierre's going after Carney or if Blanchette is going after Carney. The end result is that somebody is going after Carney and exposing his weakness. So in adjusting his role in the debate, what Pierre ended up doing is showing to Canadians, I'm not this big, mean, scary guy that the mainstream media and the Liberals keep telling you I am. He made some direct points, he made some direct criticisms, but he didn't come out he didn't come off as, you know, the Donald Trump persona that everyone is trying to ascribe him. So that was very interesting, and I thought that was very, very well played by him. Even Jagmeet was very, very selective when it came to when he had attacked Pierre. But also you noticed zero mention of Pierre about the NDP. Pierre didn't touch the NDP, didn't even regard that Jagmeet was even there. The only thing that Pierre had said to Jagmeet Singh was not true. Not true. And why is that? Because it is in the Conservative benefit for that vote split to happen. So Pierre has no interest in actually making the NDP look bad in that debate. None whatsoever. He wants Jagmeet to do well, to increase his polls, to siphon away more support from the Liberal Party, because it's extremely unlikely that any NDP voters that move to the Liberal Party will go to the Conservatives. It's very unlikely from an ideological perspective. So what is most likely is that if the NDP positions itself to do at least favorably, they potentially can siphon votes away from Carney. Now, the hope is that with all these attacks, and you saw Carney, he didn't know what to do. When outside of these answers, he's capable of being asked a question and providing an answer. But when it came to the actual open debate, in most of the case, he just sat back and he didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do. He's not an alpha male, and he's not a politician where politicians understand if you don't say anything and you wait for other people to finish, you will end up saying nothing. So he gave long answers to questions, which is why his time was so high. But if you go back and actually time it, I would bet that he had the lowest time of speaking in open debate because he didn't know what to do. And the hope is, and this is what the other party leaders are hoping, is that Canadians see that if you can't stand up to these other party leaders, how are you going to stand up to Donald Trump, which the media is branding as this big scary guy? Now, some pundits, and this is what you will hear, I guarantee you this is what you'll hear, is they'll say, well, Mark Carney demonstrated himself to be composed, and he demonstrated himself to be the calmest in the room, and that's a win for Carney. I think he did as well as he could have done in that debate. That's what their analysis will be. I guarantee you that's what it'll be. But for the average Canadian that wants someone to actually stand up, it's not going to look good. And even though Pierre was getting attacked for his use of the notwithstanding clause, I'm glad he stood up and said, don't you care? Don't you care about these criminals? Don't you care about the fact that a criminal can murder somebody, can murder 6 people and only get 4 years? That doesn't make any sense at all. So his point is, I will balance the scales of justice that are robbed from these victims when appropriate, and that's when I will use the notwithstanding clause. And there's a bunch of other exchanges in there that were interesting, but when you're looking at strength, I think Carney was a distant last, followed by Singh. Blanchette, although he came off the rails in a couple of his answers, I thought he did really well at the beginning. And I thought he did not so well in the middle, but I think he did okay in the end. And in Pierre's case, I think he did excellent when he came out. When he was talking about women's rights, he didn't allow anybody else to answer first. He said, I'm taking on the abortion issue head on. And that's why I said, I'm speaking to all women out there. And clarified his stance on all of that. And even though Carney tried to say, well, you know, he's using the notwithstanding clause on one thing, what if he comes after abortion next? Like, come on. Give me a break. So that was an interesting play. I don't think on any of the questions where Pierre was a little weaker on, it didn't hurt him. I don't think any of his answers hurt him. The only one that you can potentially argue is when they were talking about UNRWA and the foreign aid. But at least what Pierre did was he stood his ground. And that was a good thing. And he said, listen, this is an organization that was shown to be taking that money and funding terrorism. So we're not going to send organizations that money. We're going to send other organizations that money. So I thought that was an interesting aspect there. And the other thing that I'm curious to see what happens is, for many Canadians, this is the longest they would have heard Pierre speak. Because remember, all they get to hear on CBC and CTV is these sound bites that make Pierre look bad. That's all they get to hear. So in this, they actually got to hear him speak. And it's not the people that have committed to vote Liberal that he was talking to. It's the people that are like, well, I don't know. I don't know. It's the skeptics. It's the swing voters. And I think for the French swing voters, I think he did pretty darn good. I think he did really, really good. So I think just from a French standpoint, I think this was a disaster for Mark Carney. I think it was an unmitigated disaster when it came to trying to win the French vote. I think it was really bad. And I hope this is reflected in the vote, because I think Blanchette stole some votes back. I don't think Jagmeet Singh really did anything. Pierre may have stolen some votes back. He or at the very least secured the seats that the Conservatives already have in Quebec. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with the polls. But that's my initial thoughts on that. And I thought it was fascinating. Really interesting debate. Really interesting discussion. Some good questions. And overall, moderator, completely fair. I actually stopped timing the candidates because they were being very accurate with their timing. Jagmeet was only cut off twice. Once because he kept talking over them and he was warned. But this is Jagmeet trying to stand up and show, I have strength. I have strength. But it is what it is. And I think we're going to see the same thing tomorrow in the English debate, in that you're going to see Carney continue to get attacked, and tomorrow is make or break. Tomorrow I think Pierre Poilievre can win the election. Really, really think that. And the great thing is Pierre appeared calm, composed, calculating, and he debated really well. He had fast comebacks, quick retorts. And that's the Pierre we're used to seeing in House of Commons. So So if he does that tomorrow, if he comes out and has a similar performance, I think he does pretty well. But he needs to nail it, and he needs to position himself as, I will be the next prime minister, and this is how I will unite, heal this country, and lead it to prosperity, because I actually give a damn about all Canadians in here. If he can convey that, and if he can connect with people on that level and show that he's passionate, I think he has a real shot. So those are my thoughts. People may agree or disagree, but those are my thoughts. And let's get into the administrative portion of what I missed. But thanks everybody for joining. I think we topped out at 14,800 concurrent viewers, so that was amazing. We've had a total of 81,000 views so far over this stream, and we're at 6,266 likes. So we're still about half behind, folks, because we still have almost 13,000 people on the stream. So anyhow, let's get to some of the admin activity here. So give me a sec, folks, and hopefully this, of course, it didn't leave me where I want. I want here. Okay. Just trying to find my spot, folks. So okay. Right. I think I'm good, folks. So we had Wayful for Life with a $2 super chat. Can we get a cam instead of the 3D puppet? So the reason why there was a cat cam that I did actually address. No cats in here today. They're all downstairs with Tanya and probably laying all over her because they love her. The cats love her. The cat doesn't come up here because of me. The cat comes up here because of Tanya. Matt Gabriel for $20. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work. We sure will. Tony Grassi with a $7 super chat. Liberal logic. I hate Trump because he's greedy and doesn't pay taxes. I love Carney because he's greedy and doesn't pay taxes. Exactly. Janice H for $10. Just thanks, Ryan and Tanya. I really appreciate what you do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. John Gauthier for $2. Bets on Carney walking out partway in. He stayed for the whole thing. So, there was a lot of people were saying, oh, Carney's not even going to show up and everything. That would have been a disaster for him. He would have lost the election if he didn't show up. So, of course, he was going to show up. He's probably going to have nightmares tonight, but he didn't. He did show up. P. White for 10. And you know what? It's interesting. He chose not to do this TVA debate. He should have. He should have done that. Not for any self-serving reason. I'm putting myself in the Liberal campaign. They should have sent him out to that TVA debate. Why? To get practice. To get actual practice. Recall the Liberal leadership debate versus this, right? It was a liberal leadership hugfest. That's what that was. It was not a debate. It was a hugfest. This was a debate. And Carney got a sense of what it's actually like to be a politician. And I don't think he liked it. I don't think he liked it at all. So he needed practice. And the fact that he didn't go to that TVA debate, okay, not the decision I would have made. P. White, we have Carney's resume. Now we'll see the interview. Yeah. And Canadian Commando for $10. Thank you very, very much. Voted this week. Excellent. I still have privileges on the base and didn't have to hold my nose to vote for Dan Lloyd. Parkland County, I am just on the edge of Michael Cooper's riding. Oh, good for you. Good for you. And thank you. Thank all our veterans for their service. And I hope they get to talk about military spending tomorrow, because we need to do more for our veterans. We need to do a heck of a lot more for our veterans. So thanks all of you who volunteer to potentially make the ultimate sacrifice, and all of those who have family members who have. David Bell for $10. Thank you very much. It's time to annex the Liberal Dragon. I agree. We have Jacinta with $28. It doesn't get any better than a Northern perspective. Congrats on the book. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Tanya, if you haven't already, maybe throw the links to the English and French books in the live stream, if you wouldn't mind, my dear. Mr. Excuses for $2. Drink the every and ah for Carney. Yes. For those of you that did do that, well, unfortunately, you wouldn't have heard it. You will tomorrow. So you probably are still pretty sober tonight. Tomorrow, I'm not so sure. The Fellow Good for a member for 12 months. Thank you very much. This will be a massacre. Carrie Evans, member for 6 months. Thank you, NP, for all I've learned about government at 74. I can honestly say I know 500% more now than what I ever learned in school. And you know, I think about everything that we've covered on Northern Perspective over the last year, and especially recently, and we've tried to recap some things that we talked about before. And I wonder, just looking at this debate objectively, of all of the things that we talked about, everyone who follows Northern Perspective, you're dialed in, right? You know every issue, you know the terminology, you know what they mean when they say Century Initiative, when they're talking about pipelines, when they're talking about legislation, when they're talking about C-69, you know it. You know what it means. Imagine just coming in this blind. It would be very, very difficult to kind of follow this. And so you become less detached from the issues, and you're looking more on body language. So, but that's the service that we try and provide here, so everyone becomes a more informed voter. Amanda Vinny for $7. So happy this is finally happening. Thank you so much for walking us through this long. Great respect. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Carol Rome for $5. Conservative person at work asked if he should go work for the Liberals. They are used to adopting conservative plans and whatnot, so why not him? Yeah. Very well done. Chad Volrus, welcome to NP support. Thank you very much. Crispy Bacon 1973, member comment, PP on point with Trump. And Crispy Bacon dropping 20 Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very, very much for that. Much appreciated. 5W for $5. Carney reminds me of managers that people quit their jobs over. Yeah. They come in and they say, oh, you know, we're all a team and we're going to work. And then he just leaves and leaves everybody else to do all the work and goes golfing while everyone is stuck there. Louise A. King for $50. Thank you very, very much for that, Louise. Singh called Blanchette useless as the monarchy. He should know. Yes, he should. Yes, he should. Singh, God, he did not perform well. He didn't. He tried. He did not perform well. Gokodani for $2. Thank you very much. Fordbacks Carney, color me shocked. Not. Exactly. Wiffers SS for $10. You should plan a sequel, Vincent and the Great Prorogation, the Young Adult Edition. We'll see. I think if there is a sequel, it's probably going to be Vincent Gets to Vote. That's probably going to be the first sequel. So we'll see what happens. Ryan Bash 222 for $10. Thank you very much. The interpreter is not doing Pierre fair. That's interesting. It was unfortunate that the South African gentleman, which is Tony and I's favorite, he was doing the interpretation for Blanchette. Now, no doubt it's because Blanchette is the most fluent in French, and that's why they did that. But I would have wanted that South African gentleman to be the interpreter for Pierre, but c'est la vie, as they say. Goko Donnie for $5. Anyone attempting tonight's drinking game? I'm parked, all good, but I'm starting to feel good. There you go. And with another $5, he made everything. You wouldn't exist if it weren't for him. Absolutely. Woody Doppelganger for $2. Juice water box thing. Juice water box. Thing. Haha. And Rob says for $5. Is Jagmeet sure he's buying apples and not potatoes, right? I think everybody caught that. I buy my own groceries. Sure you do. 5W for $5. Did Jagmeet get the lady translator on purpose? That's racist. Rob says for $2. We need to give more money to Brookfield. Obviously. Right? Right. Quentin Begamery for $7. Carney looks absolutely annoyed. Yeah, because he keeps getting interrupted, and that's allowed. And actually, that's encouraged in debates. Phoenix Ken for $2. Is Jagmeet stoned? No, I think he's I think he's just desperate, and yeah, and I think all of his party is sitting there like this right now.
Emotional damage.
Woody Doppelganger for $5. Singh's plan is you will own nothing and like it on housing. Haha, same as Carney, right? Jagmeet Singh is basically saying, oh, we have an affordability crisis? Well, we need to tax people more. Got it. That's basically Justin Trudeau's plan back in 2015. Gokonani for $2. The Maple Marxist Party needs to go away. Vote Pierre Poilievre. And another $5. Everyone playing along needs to be parked. Responsible beverage consumption. Thank you very much. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Tucker called Pierre a sinister fraud. Okay. Well, that's Tucker Carlson for you. Anything for a headline. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Pierre has not disappointed. Singh and Carney are weak leaders, right? And that's I'm in full agreement with that, based on my commentary. Georgina Stolkar for $5. Thank you very, very much for that. And the message is Yelling Canada or Amplify Canada or Go Canada. One of the above. Trish Pearl for $2.79. I'm reminded of my dad every time I yell at my TV. Lots of yelling tonight. I wanted to yell, but I did okay. And hopefully I kept my mouth shut enough to allow people to watch. Jay English for $5. Thanks whoever gave me a sub. Love you guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. And everyone, double check your subscription status. Northern Perspective, pretty please. That would mean a lot to us. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Have to admit the Bloc and Conservatives are rocking this debate. Yeah, they did really well. And this is what I've said, and I've caught some flack for it in the past, but his platform sucks. His party, I don't agree with. Yves Blanchette is a seasoned, really skilled politician. You cannot deny that. And he had some zingers, some real zingers tonight. And he swung those so Pierre didn't have to. That's why I would not be surprised if they chatted before this. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. What do you see in hospital emergency rooms? Right. Vicky Madonica for $5. Feel better, Tanya. And Tanya heard that. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Connery, are you full of net zero lies? You don't support pipelines in Canada. Say anything to keep you in power, right? And this is when he was on this talk show saying, well, pipelines may not be a priority. Okay, sure. I would say he's for $5. Low carbon oil. Yeah, I got that too. Oil is carbon and hydrogen by definition. Literally why it's called hydrocarbons. Facepalm, right? Like,
Oh, come on!
The environmentalists should know that. Jennifer Peterson for $7. Someone should count the amount of times they say Trump USA compared to the amount of times they say Canada. Well, and they try to move as many questions over there to integrate Trump as possible. The participants, I mean. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Carney only put carbon tax to zero, right? He did not abolish it. He just set the tax rate to zero. Jay English for $2. Why is Blanchette even there? Only Quebec votes. Well, I think everybody should be happy he was there in this scenario. He was the attack dog. He was making the remarks that Pierre shouldn't have in this debate. So it was actually a good thing that Blanchette was there. Woody Doppelganger for $2. Pierre Poilievre is nailing it, and now that is my PM. Yeah, I think he had some solid answers. Gokodani for $2. Smash that like, folks. It's free. Yes, it is. Lawrence Neal for $20. When was the last time you bought steel, Todd? And notice that Mark Carney wants to build homes entirely out of wood. No steel at all. None. So, whatever you want, Mark. Is he really that intellectually challenged? This is the man who wants to ruin our economy. Oops, I meant he wants to run our economy. Yeah. Woody Doppelganger for $5. The block leader with pipelines is out of line. If you want to block pipelines, then Alberta should stop subsidies. Yeah, and that was in the middle section where Blanchet kind of went off the rails a little bit, and I think he was kind of caught, and the moderator even said that he was caught. We have James Halliday, member for 9 months. Good evening, all. Lots of talking and very little sense. LOL, Pierre for the win. Yeah. Driver says for $2. Carney's translator talks better than he does. Of course they do. Jerry Savoy, member for 18 months. Blanchette and Pierre keep destroying Jagmeet and Mark. And I'm actually wondering if, Jerry, if you were watching it in French. Gokodani for $5. Without me and my 20KL splash truck, the aviation fuel required to rescue Atawapiskat and the surrounding area would cease to happen. It's annual, right? But you got to get rid of that fuel, Donnie. Thomas McCrandles for $10. Let's bring it home. Pierre Poilievre for Prime Minister. Crispy Bacon for $5. Ryan, your Larry Brock meme would be perfect for Carney right now. Oh, I know exactly the one that you mean. It is this one.
I guess my appearance at committee's not going very well today.
I guess my appearance at debate's not going very well today. Oh my goodness, he was probably thinking that over and over and over. And Zero Duval for $20. Go Pierre, Blue Wave, excellent. Doppelganger Rogue for $5. Triple track, 3 each way train system. And then we can send houses, natural resources, and anything across the country. This is my idea. What do you think? It's we have many railways moving across the country. The trick is railways are super expensive to build and to maintain, and you may even argue more expensive than pipelines. But we need a lot of things. I don't think it's a bad idea. The question is when would we need it? When would we maximize the benefit about that? I don't have the information for that. Gokotani for $5. I love how the interpreter is reading his full commentary faster than he can pull it off. IRT just saying. We all know he has to have help, right? Well, there's going to be a delay, and I imagine they made a delay that way so from the viewer's perspective everything kind of lines up, because the interpreters are going to be waiting maybe 5 to 10 seconds before they start speaking. So I think there was a synchronization that happened there. That's what I think is happening there. Woody Doppelganger for $5. No Carney. We can't accept everyone to go back to Europe. Exactly. And really glad that Pierre took a hard stance on that. Humble Tracker member for 17 months. Just saying hello, NP family. Cheers to all. Looking forward to the English debate, as we all are. And Mega Man Zero for $10. As a French, too much immigration, especially Middle East, is damaged for decades to represent, I imagine. We already took in Canada too much. We have a credit of 9 million migrants to repay with zero immigration and deports. Yeah, it's a huge problem, and Quebec does take a lot of the asylum seekers, and we have to stop it. We have to look at what is our capacity in Canada. People say, well, there's the humanity aspect. Well, there's also the humanity aspect of completely destroying our own system at the expense of saying, well, we want to be human to people that need the help. Well, this is the issue. This is the issue, is that you cannot reduce Canadians to have to wait months, if not years, for surgery. There's cases where Canadians have literally died waiting for surgery. Why is that? Because of our overtaxed medical system. So the more people you bring in, the more it gets overtaxed. And it's just a reality. And again, it's not the problem with the people, it's the problem with the policies. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Temporary foreign worker students enforce temporary. Right. Send them back to their country of origin once they're done school. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Immigration needs to halt. We have nowhere to put them until we can fix our housing crisis and give immigrants a reason to come here, work, etc. There you go. Gokodani for $5. Carney and Jughead are the Maple Marxist Party. Tell me I'm wrong. Take all the time you need. Cal, I'll get back to you. Chad Landstrom for $5. We want Singh to do well here. Lord help me. I never thought I would have ever agreed with that before. Yep. Strategic. Just strategically speaking. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Yes, the West is tired of being the East ATMs and punching bag. Now, I just want to make sure everybody knows something. Ontario pays $40 billion more a year in income tax than Alberta. Just throwing that out there. Gokodani for $2. Here's the dance. Hope you're wearing your best. Yes, it is. And 5W for $5. Uh-oh, whenever Carney makes an assertion, it is most likely a lie. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Oh, boo-hoo. Carney, we don't care if you have just become a leader. You have had a hand in the government under Trudeau. Right. And he was trying to say, but I was... Did you catch that part? When Pierre went after him and Carney like, but I was the governor of the Bank of it. And then he just got cut off. Just completely cut off and destroyed. And Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Carney mentioned deals with all WEF nations. Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that... that go to the World Economic Forum from those nations. SK for $2. Jagmeet Singh about to be Jagmeet Singh. Yep. 5W. For $5, my health is my identity. I'm a health sexual. I use sterilized pronouns. Beautiful. What a beautiful comment. That's great. Gokodani for $2. Lib NDP are the team we have to beat. That's clear. Well, the problem is the NDP's beat themselves. The NDP has to go after the Liberals. The NDP doesn't serve themselves by really going after anybody but the Liberals at this point. And D for $10. Ryan, your family will always be welcome in the Republic of Alberta. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you very much. Laura Elliott for $2. Pierre Poilievre for Prime Minister. Or Prime Minister. There you go. And 420 hitter for $10. Congrats on highest viewers for this event. I'm a little disappointed on Pierre's answer on foreign aid. Cut it all. And on immigration, we need near zero or negative until we get housing under control. And Andrew Lepenzi for $2. Studio 3A, shocker. And Lifeline Canada Centers for $2.79. Thank you very, very much. Much appreciated. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Carney, just asked Jody Wilson-Raybould about women. Right? And Humble Tracker dropping 20 memberships. Thank you very much, Humble Tracker. Much appreciated. Gokodani for $2. I did say this election cycle would be lit. LOL. Yup. Woody Doppelganger for $5. Carney and Jagmeet sound like they are being paid by the criminals they protect. Sounds like it, eh? And Crispy Bacon with 20 memberships dropped. Thank you very, very much for that. Hopefully everyone is giving you guys all the thanks that you deserve for those memberships. Lazarus for $2. Surprised Carney didn't say full stop. Oh, he may have said something. He said, firstly, secondly, thirdly, concluding with, right? This is how he tries to establish presence, and it does not work in a political debate. Doesn't work at all. CGR 902 for $5. Scheduling the debate at the same time as the hockey game was not a coincidence. This is very carefully arranged to minimize exposure for Carney. Well, but that's why they moved it up, so people could see it. Just me Nicole for $5. Just a reminder that we are 14,000. Hit the like, please. I remember that. Crispy Bacon 1973 for $2. Carney, best balance sheet in the G7, right? Carolyn DeSantos for $7. Did you happen to notice Roy said, drill baby drill? Yes, absolutely. He said it in English. On the topic of energy and climate change, do you support oil pipeline? 100% notice that. Dipep for $20. Thank you very much. Great work, Ryan. Hope Tony gets well soon. Thank you very much. She heard you. Slim Chance for $2. Carney looked like a tired old man. Well, if the shoe fits. Joshua for $2. Seeing a few more CPC signs in Hamilton Center tonight. That's interesting. Hayden Christensen, excellent candidate, doing yeoman's work out there. I don't know if he'll win, but he's putting forth a really, really solid effort. So you guys got a solid candidate in Hayden. Woody Doppelganger for $2. Carney looked like a lost child. Just me, Nicole for $5. No mention of China's tariffs on our farmers or interferences. Think they will ask tomorrow? I think so. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because Pierre has to bring up the stuff but not look like he is the attack dog. And I don't think I'd be surprised if Blanchette was there tomorrow, because he doesn't care. So he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. H&T Comics and Collectibles, welcome to TV supporter. Welcome aboard. Curdy for $10. Jag and Carney aware on the ropes. Sick. Yeah. They were in tough. -1-2 for $5. Radio Canada analysts are saying that Carney won because he didn't make any guess. Right? That's exactly kind of what I was saying. It's like, well, you know, he looked calm and that's all I needed to do. As if nothing of value was said for 2 hours. What a bunch of clowns, right? And this is how they were setting this up on media. They were essentially saying, well, he just has to survive to win. What a joke. What a joke to even say that. So you're basically telling Canadians, yeah, so in order to vote for Carney, all he has to do is stand there. That's all he has to do. Give me a break. And they're all saying, well, Pierre's the one that has the most to lose there. Patricia Grieco, real estate broker, for $2.79. Thank you very much for that, Patricia. Great debate. Pierre will win. Yes, I think he did. Monica RG, thank you very much for joining as NP supporter. Diane Sylvain, great to see you for $20. Carney's French was bad, number 1. Number 2, moderator loaded questions about fear of terrorists and Trump, etc. 3, Carney kept saying, we are in a crisis. 4, Carney was totally beat in the French-speaking immigration coming into Quebec. Yeah, that's where I think he really, really made a huge gaffe. And it'll be interesting to see how the Quebecers respond to that in the polls. Blade Loves Cats for $50. Thank you so much. Just a thank you for your awesome work. Thank you very much. And we have Light Blue for $2. Mainstream media attempt to spin this for Carney. You know that they're doing that right now. We have all my this is -1-2 for $5. All my undecided friends in Quebec told me they decided they'll be voting for Pierre after that debate. No kidding. Excellent. I don't even care who they vote for as long as it's not the Liberals. Humble Tracker for $10. Thank you very, very much. Regardless of the political position, I was happy to see so many streams covering the French debate. It really feels this election is something special across Canada. Yeah, that's a really good point, Humble Tracker, and I agree that this is probably the first election in a long time where so many Canadians are engaged, which is really good to see. And the interesting thing here is that it seems like the Canadians that are most engaged are the ones that are voting for Conservative. Why? Not because you know, liberals are stupid or anything like that, like liberal voters, is that when you stop to actually take a breath, look at the facts, not from a partisan perspective, but you just look at the facts, because we've had many people say that they would have voted Liberal and then they found Northern Perspective, or they would have voted NDP and then they found Northern Perspective. So it's a matter of taking a breath and saying, okay, what are the facts? No BS, what are the facts? And then when you consider what those facts are, it surprises you. It surprises you at the corruption. It surprises you at how things were done. And when you then get to learn how government works, you get to learn how things were done. So most of the people that are out there considering to vote for Liberals haven't done this deep dive, and they haven't been engaged, and they haven't been watching their government. This is why it is so important for an informed electorate. So important. So excellent point. I agree, Humble Tracker, 100%. Mary Binney for $10 with a super sticker. Pair character bowing down saying thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much for that. Yolinda Frolic for $2.79. So terrified of a Liberal win. Can it be rigged? Our opinion is that this will not be a rigged election. There's no evidence that suggests that it will. The only irregularities that we've seen is some people have been mailed 2 different voter identification cards. You cannot use that to vote twice. If somebody tries to use that second card to go and vote, they will say, this person's already voted. Please step over here with this officer. That's what'll happen. Remember, some people have a misunderstanding that the federal election uses voting machines. There are 0 voting machines in use in the Canadian federal election. Elections Canada wants to keep it that way. So there is no evidence that has come across our desk that this has the capability of being rigged. Is voter fraud possible? Yes, and it's happened in rare cases, and I mean rare cases, not in the hundreds, but in the dozens, and that's it. Not to any significant impact over the course of the last 25 years or so. So that I'm not worried about. David Yana for $5. I was surprised that there was no closing argument in the French debate. There better be one tomorrow. Pierre needs to go with the heart and hope message. I agree, and that's the interesting thing, right? This is something that's usually at the end of debates. But they prioritize the hockey game over this. Really? We have Shiba Winu. Hopefully I said your name right. If I didn't, my apologies. CBC has the scrum. Carney asked about genders, and he said 2. Really? Really? Tell him to say that more. All those votes will go over to the NDP. That's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that. Blade Loves Cats for $20. I watched on a French independent channel, and about an hour in, CBC got their live stream shut down. They were close to 2,500 viewers. They put in a copyright complaint, and they were streaming from CPAC's channel. No kidding. No kidding. I guess it depends, because if they were streaming CBC's feed, they still shouldn't have gotten shut down, by the way. But if they were streaming CBC's feed, I guess the intern argument is that, well, you know, that's our channel. It doesn't matter what we're streaming. You're streaming our stuff. So interesting, very interesting. Diane Sylvain for $50. Thank you so much, Diane. Pierre did great. Blanchette did great. Blanchette cannot be beat for language. Of course, Carney was wishy-washy, especially about pipelines. Loved it when Blanchette said Carney's financial plan was magic, like a Harry Potter trick. Yeah, that was great. That was great. Again, Blanchette was the attack dog. He did his job. He did his job. And Chris Van Baum for $5, defending the criminals by saying it's against their rights. What about the rights of the victims that were taken away by those who should be in jail? Yeah, this is what the main argument is. Really, this is why we're in this situation where violent crime is up almost 50%, 50, since 2015. It's because liberal legislation cares more about the rights of criminals than it does about the victims that they were put in jail for, or that they're supposed to be put in jail for. And Sly 256 for $5. Thanks for the description on this debate. I could not wait to get your feedback. Salutations to Tanya. Excellent. She heard it. Levy T for $2. Hopefully going to talk about China in the next debate. Yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. Steve Dion for $28. Thank you very much. Keep up the awesome work, Ryan. Wife and I both love your show. Excellent. And Tanya heard that as well. Jocelyn Masende, maybe, hopefully, for $5. And it's a pair character doing a classic mic drop. Awesome. Thank you. Fred Bridges for $3 with a super sticker. And it's a pair stretching his arm forward, raising thumbs up. Perfect. We have Pam Lambert, member for 15 months. It was because of MP I got my membership so I could vote for Pierre for leader and got to know about him. Very cool. And Mike Van Slingerland, gifting 5 memberships, as well as Gokodani with 10 memberships. Thank you both. Thank you very, very much. Diane Sylvain for $5. Singh is the one who looked desperate and a useless attack dog. He was totally irritating, especially referencing teas. Yeah, I agree. Stefan Bertrand for $5. Ryan, you know how Grumpy Carney looked. I gave the nickname Grumpy Face Carney. There you go. Chris Van Baum for $2. Jagmeet wasn't stoned, just stunned. There's a aptly put description. Cass for $5. Jagmeet is the yippy chihuahua that won't stop humping your leg. Would have been great to see Francois Philippe Champagne in there, though, eh? Ken Kemp for joining MP supporter. Thank you very much. Polyboy75 for $10. Carney looked like a deer staring into headlights. Yes, he sure did. Kokodani for $5. Survival 101. Don't believe MSM for the same reason you don't eat from the toilet. Better safe than sorry. Jagmeet Singh. Dan H. member for 4 months. Hopefully the Carney, it's my first day at work excuse will come back to bite him, right? If you're trying to say, well, you know, this is my first time here, then that means you're not qualified if you have to keep using that excuse, pal. Just saying. Elizabeth Sheffy for $7. A hippo's head pops out of the water, surrounded by his hippo squad. Excellent. Thank you very much. Harriet Blanca for $50. Thank you so much, Harriet. In honor of Christopher and Mark, 2 fine young Canadians. J&H. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jerry Savoy for $5. No, watching English, want to be part of chat and MP Nation. Reason I stayed on this channel. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us, Jerry. Much appreciated. Marsha Barrett for $5 and sending a sticker. Video game controller jumping up and down excitedly. Love it. BJ McGraw for $10. Good poll, Ryan, with 5,000 votes compared to the biased pollsters who poll 1,000 to 1,500. This should tell us something. Vote the Liberals out. And Curdy for $2. Hit the like, brothers and sisters. Yes. Carla S., member for 13 months. Feel better soon, Tanya. We hope she will. Woody Doppelganger for $10. I would like to say a Canadian is a Canadian, East or West. I was born in the West and raised in the East. We need to stop the divide from within. We are all Canadian. I 100% agree with you. Diane Sylvain for $5. The issue about not enough women in Parliament, all good. Because Barbara Ball will be a strong MP. My prayer, Carney loses his seat. That would be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Gokodani for $5. Whomever is responsible for Carney's daily glue intake, do we have a choice on the sponsor? Asking for a friend, LOL. Noseland for $5. Walking around Niagara Falls, and it's flooded with conservative signs. Hopefully we win a majority come the 28th. We can only hope. And as long as we all do our part, even if it's 1 hour from now until the 28th, that is helping an election win. So let's get out there and leave it all on the ice, as they say. Jerry Savoy for $5. I feel my Carney is like Mr. Burns in Simpsons. Same energy, only difference Mr. Burns has a nuclear power plant and Mark Carney was a banker. And we have Stuart Mitchell gifting 5 memberships. Thank you very much for that. Oil B for $5. I am meeting my Conservative candidate in Quebec and helping her with volunteering and votes as much as I can. Let's bring it home. Excellent. Love hearing that. Blade loves cats for $10. They were streaming from CPAC. French. I guess CPAC was using Radio Canada's feed. But still, Radio Canada should classify as a news organization, and that should be fair use. Unless they weren't talking at all or adding any other content. I don't know. Peter Massan, welcome to NP supporter. Thank you very much. Kathy Mackney for $5. NP helped this swing voter into a conservative voter. Love hearing that. Thank you. Watch Your Eyes 2 for $2. Liberal move Bernardo / Magnata medium security. Yes, it was. It absolutely was. So, anyway, folks, it's about 9 o'clock. Next for Cup with a $5 super chat. I was very disappointed on Pierre throwing the slogans in at every opportunity. If I was advising him, I'd tell him not to do that tomorrow. I didn't find it too bad. I didn't hear him say "Lost Liberal Decade." I didn't hear him say "Axe the Tax." I didn't hear him say "Bring it home" that much. So I didn't catch too many. Now maybe it's because I've heard them a lot and I'm just a bit desensitized to it. But I didn't find it that bad. But I agree with you. He needs to speak in plain language, and he needs to show the swing voters that have not seen him speak that he is not as he has been branded. So that's my thought on that. And Joshua for the $5 super chat. Leisure did a poll showing 75% of CPC voters are voting based on hope versus 30% for LPC. Most LPC, NDP, and Bloc voters are voting based on fear. Yes, they are. And I think we're going to be. I'm not going to say it. Let's just say that I'm hoping we hear silence from down south until the end, which I think we will. Gokodani for $5. Northern Perspective, go get a proper white tea. If you have none, I can fix that. You can lift your house in 1 to 4 days. Where are you? Well, we're in the riding of Hamilton East Stony Creek. That's where we're at. So anyway, folks, 9 o'clock. We've been going for 3.5 hours. So let's put it there. We have a big day tomorrow. Tomorrow's stream, unless something crazy happens, is going to start at approximately 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So that will be 3:30 Pacific Time out west. So hopefully all of you can join us for that. Depending on how things go, we may start it a little bit earlier, but that's when it's scheduled for. So tomorrow's make or break. It's the most important debate of Pierre's life, and if he performs as well as he did tonight, I think he's going to do just fine. So. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our coverage for the French language debate of the 2025 federal election. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for all the contributions, and we will see you tomorrow. Let's bring it home.